In the next few days, the war grinds on. The 19 affiliated forces shift and brace, supporting one another across battlefields that burn day and night. Shursun Town, once a quiet trading hub, is now a war zone. The streets are clogged with barricades, overturned carts, and the corpses of soldiers who tried to hold the line. On the north wall, a tier for commander shouts above the clash of steel and the roar of inhuman voices. Form ranks. Hold that breach. Archers, cover the left flank. Damn it, move! But his voice is swallowed by chaos. The enemy soldiers, monstrous, eyes glowing with hunger for blood, tear through the defenders like wolves in a pen of sheep. And at the front of the assault, Carnessa moves like a shadow with teeth. Once timid, once afraid to even meet an enemy's gaze, she now walks in carnage like it's her rightful home. Mazel's training has burned the fear out of her, leaving only precision and hunger for the kill. Her whip snaps out with a sound like a thunderclap, the barbed tip coiling around the neck of a human soldier. Before he can even scream, she pulls, not to drag him toward her, but to slice. The whip tightens, cuts through skin, muscle, and vein. His head tumbles free, and the spray of blood doesn't fall. It hangs in the air, trembling under her control. Carnessa's lips curl. Bleed for me. The floating droplets twist, stretch, and lance outward, spearing into 3 more soldiers at once. The crimson needles pierce through armor gaps as if drawn by instinct, finding the heart each time. They drop in unison, their blood joining the swirling mass orbiting her like a slow storm. Behind her, one of the monster commander just like her laughs, watching her work. You're wasting time, Carnessa. Why play with them? She cracks the whip again, this time tangling a soldier's arm and yanking him forward. She steps in close, palm against his chest. I'm not playing. Blood bursts from his pores like water from a burst pipe, drawn out of him in a rush that leaves him pale before he hits the ground. Another skill flares. The blood already in the air hardens, shaping into jagged crimson blades that hover around her like a crown of murder. With a flick of her wrist, they fly, cutting through the rear lines, soldiers screaming as they fall. The Tier 4 captain sees her now, eyes wide. Focus fire on that woman now. But it's too late. Carnessa spins, whip singing, sending its barbs across the wall in a wide arc. The soldiers who try to dodge are caught by the flying blood blades instead, cutting down men in a perfect half-circle around her. The commander's grin widens. Little Carnessa, once timid and skittish, and now, who would have thought? She glances at him, eyes cold, then looks back at the surviving defenders. No more than a dozen on this section of the wall. I was afraid because I was weak, she says softly, almost to herself. The whip coils, blood swirls tighter, and her voice sharpens like a blade. I'm not weak anymore. By the time the sun dips low, the streets of Shursun Town are silent except for the crackle of fire and the groans of the dying. The banners of the defenders are torn and trampled into the mud, their colors drowned in red. Carnessa walks through the ruined main square, her whip still wet, the faint orbit of blood around her slowly dissipating as her power settles. Commander Zombinder, a hulking monster with a plated hide and jagged tusks, approaches from the west street, stepping over a shattered cart. His voice rumbles with approval. Carnessa, you've become even more powerful than yesterday. From the side, another figure joins them. A woman monster with long, bone-like claws and a predatory smile. Sayan's eyes glint as she studies Carnessa. By the way, aren't you close to His Majesty? Carnessa looks at her for a moment, the faintest curve of a smile tugging at her lips. Yeah, His Majesty is my savior. He bought me when I was sold as a slave. Zombinder snorts, a tusked grin spreading across his face. Then when you become Tier 5, you'll immediately become a general. You know that, right? You're close to His Majesty, so you'll get promoted the moment you advance. While the rest of us have to reach Tier 7, which, let's be honest, is impossible for most. Sayan chuckles low, her claws flexing idly. If you do get promoted, just so you know, the 2 of us are available. Carnessa stops walking, tilts her head toward them, and the firelight catches the red in her eyes. Then she smiles, calm, but with a sharpness under it. Of course I won't forget. I'd be glad to have you both in my ranks. Zamvinder lets out a low laugh, the sound echoing off the burned-out walls. Sayan's grin widens. Around them, the surviving monsters regroup, dragging human corpses into piles. The smell of blood is thick in the air. And at the heart of it all, Carnessa stands straight, her whip coiled loosely at her side. The three of them, Carnessa, Zamvinder, and Sayan, give the order without hesitation. Gather every gold coin, jewel, and anything of value. Zamvinder rumbles. Strip the town clean before we move on. The soldiers obey instantly, splitting into squads, overturning merchant stalls, prying open chests, and ripping lockboxes out of ruined homes. The clink of coins and the tearing of wood fills the square. Sayan is already counting a small pouch of gems she personally took from a noble's corpse. While the chaos unfolds, Carnessa keeps walking, eyes scanning the streets as if the gold means little to her. Her whip drags along the cobblestones, leaving a faint trail of drying blood. Carnessa steps over the collapsed body of a merchant, the man's once rich clothes now soaked in mud and blood. Her gaze isn't on the gold spilling from his pockets. It's far away, fixed on a memory. The Ashedge clan. A clatter of metal pulls Carnessa back to the present. She turns her head slightly, watching as two soldiers, a horned brute and a four-armed, thin-limbed stalker, dump a chest of gold coins onto the cobblestones, letting the coins scatter so they can stuff them into sacks faster. Zamvinder's voice rumbles over the din. Move it. We ride before dawn. Next town won't wait for us to take our time. Sayan strolls past Carnessa, twirling one of her bone claws like a knife. What's with the long face? Didn't take you for the sentimental type. Carnessa doesn't answer right away. She glances at Sayan, her expression unreadable. Just thinking of a clan that knew how to keep their monsters alive. Sayan raises a brow, curiosity flickering in her eyes. Is that the Ashedge clan you're always talking about? Carnessa just nods once. Zamvinder snorts, shaking his head as he lifts a sack of gold over one massive shoulder. I still can't believe there's a human force on this continent that doesn't torture their monster slaves. Carnessa's gaze hardens, but her tone is calm. That's why His Majesty wants to give them a chance when the time comes. When we march on their city, they'll be offered surrender. Zamvinder grunts, unconvinced. And if they refuse? Her lips press into a thin line. Then they'll bleed like the rest. She exhales through her nose, turning away. Let's not talk about it. Ironvale City, deep in Ashedge territory. The streets outside are quiet, the moonlight catching on the slate rooftops, but inside a small stone pub, every chair is empty except one. Valira sits at the center table, a tall glass of deep red wine in her hand. The entire place is hers tonight. She paid the owner triple the asking price to clear the building, though the Ashedge clan already owns every brick in Ironvale. The pub owner lingers behind the counter, polishing the same glass over and over, his brow furrowed. He keeps glancing at her. His lord's daughter, the heir to the entire city, and she looks troubled. And if the heir has a problem, that means trouble for everyone under this roof. The door creaks open. Two figures step in, the faint smell of rain clinging to their cloaks. Gresrin, broad-shouldered and armored even off duty, and Salvan, lean and sharp-eyed, both wearing the subtle crest of the clan on their belts. Gresrin's voice cuts through the quiet. Why is the young lady drinking here alone? Valira glances up, her expression softening just slightly. Gresrin, Salvan, join me. They don't hesitate. Chairs scrape against the wooden floor as they sit. Gresrin on her right, Salvan across from her. Salvan studies her a moment, then asks, Is this because of Sir Hadrick? Salvan's voice is measured, but there's a note of sympathy. Lady Valira, I'm sure the clan leader is hurt as you are. But in times like these, grief is a luxury for the leader of the Ashedge clan. He carries the survival of all of us on his back. I know. she says quietly, her gaze fixed on the table. Gresrin leans back in his chair, arms crossed. You shouldn't be too sad for Sir Hadrick. You know him. Dying in battle is what a warrior like him would have wanted. Valira swirls the wine in her glass, watching the deep red spin in slow circles. Her voice is softer now. If only Alex were here, he would surely think of something. Salvin leans forward, forearms resting on the table. Yeah, that guy. He shakes his head. I still can't get news about him, even after using the clan's intel network. It's like he's vanished. Gresrin shifts in his chair, his mouth twisting like he's about to say something bitter. Don't you think the Mons? Valira's eyes snap up, sharp enough to cut him off. Don't you dare finish what you're about to say, Gresrin. He freezes mid-word, hands lifting in mock surrender. Yes, ma'am. The morning light creeps through the heavy curtains, stabbing straight into Valira's skull. She groans, rolling over and dragging the blanket over her head. Her temples pound in rhythm with her heartbeat. Ugh. Feels like my head's splitting, she mutters, voice hoarse. I really shouldn't have drunk that much last night. She forces herself to sit up, her hair sticking in tangled strands against her cheek. The room sways for a moment, the faint scent of wine still clinging to her breath. A sudden knock rattles the door. Before Valira can even answer, it opens, and a young maid steps inside with a hurried curtsy. Young lady, the Lord is looking for you. Valira blinks, trying to focus on the girl through the haze. Right now. Yes, my lady. He said it's urgent. Valira sighs, rubbing her eyes. All right, I'll go. Just give me a minute to make myself look like I didn't spend the night at the bottom of a wine barrel. The maid hides a small smile and bows again. Of course, my lady. She slips back out, closing the door softly behind her. Valira swings her legs over the side of the bed, stretching until her joints pop. The chill of the stone floor against her bare feet pulls her a little more into the waking world. She glances toward the mirror on the vanity. Her reflection stares back with smudged eyeliner and a faint scowl. Perfect, she mutters dryly, grabbing the water basin to splash her face before heading toward the wardrobe. Valira fastens her cloak loosely over her shoulders, not bothering to hide the faint redness in her eyes. The headache still gnaws at her, but she pushes it aside. The corridors of the manor are cool and dim, sunlight spilling in only where tall windows cut through the stone walls. Servants move briskly out of her way, bowing as she passes. She catches a few sidelong glances. Word of her late-night drinking probably spread faster than she could sober up. At the end of the hall, two guards in ash-edge armor stand before a set of carved oak doors. They nod in greeting, one pushing the door open for her. Inside, her father, Velkane, stands behind a broad desk strewn with maps, letters, and half-drained cups of tea. His armor is set aside on a rack in the corner, but the deep lines on his face look heavier than any metal. He doesn't look up right away. Instead, he finishes marking a route on the map with a piece of charcoal, his jaw set tight. Velkane finally stops, setting the charcoal down. When he looks at his daughter, the stern weight in his features softens. There's warmth in his eyes, warmth only she has ever been able to draw out of him. Valira is his only child. Her mother could bear no more after her, and though Velkane once longed for a son to inherit the Ash-Edge clan, he long ago accepted, and now takes pride, that Valira will succeed him. In truth, she's already done more for the clan than he had at her age. A faint smile tugs at his lips. When did my princess become a drunkard? Valira pouts, folding her arms. That will be my last. I feel horrible right now. Velkane steps around the desk, his boots heavy on the stone floor. Are you still mad at me? She hesitates, eyes flicking away. Silence stretches between them before she mutters. Well, not anymore. Just a little bit, I guess. He exhales through his nose, a short, amused breath, and places a calloused hand on her shoulder. Then we'll work on making that little bit disappear. Valira tilts her head, studying him. Okay, father, I know you didn't call me here just for that. Velkane nods once. That's right. You know the Yosha kingdom is the next target of the monsters, don't you? Her brow furrows. I've heard. We need to aid them, Velkane says, his voice firm. I'm sending 100,000 soldiers, with you leading them. 2 Tier 6 will accompany you. Valira blinks, taken aback. Father, is that really okay? 100,000 is a lot. And those two? She hesitates, lowering her voice. They're Tier 6. They'll only listen to you, not me. Velkane's expression hardens, but there's pride behind it. Don't underestimate your popularity, Valira. Your merit to this clan is greater than mine has ever been. She shifts uncomfortably. You're exaggerating. I'm not. His tone leaves no room for argument. Let them see what the next leader of the Ashedge clan is capable of. Valira straightens slightly, the weight of his words settling on her shoulders. All right, I'll prove you right. In the Yosha kingdom, the streets are chaos. Merchants abandon their stalls, families drag carts of belongings, and soldiers shout orders over the din. The air stinks of smoke and fear. In the War Council Hall, a map of the kingdom covers the table. 3/4 of it is shaded in black ink, the territory already taken by the monsters. The red lines marking the front keep shrinking every day. A grizzled Yoshan general slams his fist against the table. They've already crossed the Soren Plains. At this pace, the capital will be surrounded in less than a week. Another officer, his armor dented and dusty from the front lines, shakes his head. We only managed to slow them down because reinforcements started arriving. Without them, the kingdom would have fallen days ago. An older noble leans forward, his voice trembling. And you're certain more help is coming? We cannot hold without it. A scout steps in, saluting. Messengers report the Ashedge clan has dispatched 100,000 soldiers, led by Lord Velkane's daughter. 2 Tier 6 generals accompany her. The room stirs with murmurs. Valira Ashedge? The grizzled general asks, narrowing his eyes. I've heard of her. A general frowns. She's good, but can she command forces of that size? Especially with Tier 6 under her. The noble waves a hand impatiently. Good or not, we need every sword we can get. Pray she gets here before the monsters push through the next line. The murmurs fade when the king, who has been silent until now, finally speaks. His voice is calm but heavy. Tell me, is the Ashedge clan the only one from the top 10 forces under the Empire that has sent reinforcements? The room goes quiet. No one dares answer until the Tier 6 marshal steps forward, his expression grim. Yes, your majesty. The Two Kingdom hasn't sent a single soldier. Even the Empire itself remains silent. The king exhales slowly, his shoulders sinking. Even in a time like this, they still think only of preserving their own strength. The marshal's lips curl in bitterness. They must believe that those of us ranked below the top 10 are enough to bleed the monsters dry, and when we've been ground down to nothing, that's when they'll move. A general clenches his fists. So they're using us as a wall, a disposable shield. The king closes his eyes for a brief moment, then straightens in his seat. Then we'll be a wall they can't break. If the others wish to move only when it benefits them, let them. The Yosha kingdom will stand with those who choose to fight now. The marshal bows his head. Yes, your majesty. The city of Dexa burns. Smoke coils into the sky, blotting out the sun. The screams of civilians mix with the clash of steel and the roar of collapsing walls. Water crashes through the streets in rushing torrents. Skills from the Watervale clan. Their soldiers using wave after wave to shield the fleeing people. Keep moving. Don't stop for anything. A Watervale captain shouts, his voice hoarse. He swings his trident, releasing a burst of pressurized water that smashes a hulking monster into a wall. The creature crumples, but more pour through the shattered gates. The city is lost. Everyone knows it. Now, the only goal is escape. A noblewoman in a torn gown stumbles toward the evacuation line, clutching a crying child. A Watervale soldier catches her before she falls, pulling both toward the waiting carts. Go! The last convoy leaves in 3 minutes. Across the square, The true predators arrive. Carnessa stands at the forefront, tall, horned, and wrapped in blackened armor that gleams red in the firelight. Her oni eyes burn as she surveys the retreating humans. The street runs slick with water and blood. "Enough," she says coldly. "Stop chasing them." The monsters behind her halt mid-charge. From the rooftop above, Nasara said, "You're letting them go?" Carnessa doesn't look at her. "They've already broken. Chasing them now is a waste of strength." Vertha lands beside Carnessa, her scaled arms crossed over his chest. "I thought you enjoyed the hunt." From the shadows of a collapsed archway, Soren steps forward, brushing dust from her dark cloak. Her eyes, like shards of obsidian, narrow on the fleeing humans. They're scattering in all directions. Let them. Fear spreads faster when they think they've escaped. Thurn chuckles low in his throat, leaning on his spear. And when that fear reaches the next city, it'll already be half-beaten before we even get there. Nasara's lips curve into a faint smile as she strolls closer, her steps unhurried despite the chaos around them. "Don't be too harsh on our little sister here," she says, tilting her head toward Carnessa. "I still remember when His Majesty first introduced you. You could barely meet anyone's eyes, so timid and quiet." Her gaze flicks briefly to the burning skyline before she adds, "But now, Sir Mazel has clearly worked wonders." Carnessa's face twitches. "All right, don't make me remember those hellish trainings." Soren turns her head toward them. "Okay, enough standing around. Let's clean this place out." After the last human cart vanishes into the smoke, Soren sweeps her gaze over the carnage. "Strip everything worth taking," she orders curtly. "Load the goods into the carts. Send them back to the main before dawn." Her soldiers move immediately, dragging crates of grain, barrels of water, and sacks of coin from shattered homes and abandoned stalls. Broken furniture and blood-stained linens are tossed aside without a glance. Once the last cart creaks away into the darkness, Soren speaks again, her voice carrying over the crackle of flames. "That's enough for tonight. Rest. We move at first light." Thurn said, "You heard her. Find a roof or what's left of one, and get some sleep. We'll need it." Nasara steps past a smoking pile of rubble, her pale hair glinting red in the firelight. "Pick the spots with the least screaming," she says dryly, earning a few dark chuckles from nearby soldiers. Veltha flicks his tail, the scales catching the light as he rumbles. "And no one touches my cake. I'll hang who dares." Their commands ripple outward, the units breaking off to settle among the ruins. The air hums with the low chatter of resting troops, the distant sobs of captives, and the endless crackle of burning wood. Carnessa lingers near the four generals. Technically, she is still a commander under Thurn's authority, but she walks with them like an equal. The next morning, the army moves out. The trail of their march is a long, dark ribbon cutting through the open plains, hundreds of boots and hooves churning the dirt. The air smells faintly of ash, carried on the wind from decks afar behind them. In the largest carriage, its reinforced walls muffling the outside noise, a broad table dominates the center. Spread across it is a detailed map of their next target. A sprawling city nestled in a valley, flanked by a winding river on the east and steep cliffs to the west. The parchment is weighted down by daggers and empty mugs, preventing it from sliding with the carriage's rumble. Thurn leans over the table, one claw tapping against the river's painted curve. "The eastern gate is their weakest point," he says, his voice low and certain. "The current is fast enough to keep most heavy units away, but my poison will flow downstream. The river will do half the work for me." Nasara rests her chin on her knuckles, studying the cliffs to the west. "The walls there will be thick, but the ground is riddled with old mine tunnels. I can collapse sections from underneath and open gaps for our siege units." Vertha folds her scaled arms, her gaze fixed on the northern road. "They'll expect us from here. Fast units can harry their scouts, keep them guessing, but if we commit to the north, we'll meet their strongest cavalry head-on." Soren's eyes flicker between shadow and light as the carriage sways. They're on high alert because of Dexa. Their watchtowers will burn signals the moment they spot us. We hit hard, fast, and vanish before they can rally. My quick units can cut their messenger lines in the first hour. Carnessa traces a gauntlet finger along the city's inner streets, her eyes narrowing. If we force them to retreat here, she taps a plaza near the center. We can bottleneck them. The more they cram in, the easier it will be to break them in one strike. Nassara smirks faintly, spoken like someone who's been watching Sir Mazel's playbook. Thurn chuckles. She's learning, maybe too well. The map trembles slightly as the carriage hits a rut, the mugs rattling against the wood. Outside, the muted roar of marching feet continues without pause. Soren finally straightens, her tone sharp and final. We split into our elements, hit from four sides and leave them no way out. The city falls in one day, or we've wasted the momentum Dexa gave us. No one argues. The carriage rolls on, the map between them already stained with ash from the last city they burned. The moment the carriage stops, orders ripple outward like cracks through stone. Each general departs with their own unit, the morning sun glinting off steel, chitin, and scales. Thurn moves along the riverbank, his Arachne legs clicking over wet stones. His soldiers fan out behind him, their armor dull and mottled, perfect for blending with the reeds. He kneels, trailing a claw in the current. The water runs cold and fast. Perfect, he mutters. He turns to his second in command, a wiry Arachne with venom-green eyes. Release the first batch upstream. Don't rush. It needs to blend. Glass vials are uncorked, their contents swirling into the river like smoke underwater. The poison vanishes from sight almost instantly. Thurn smiles thinly. By the time they use Thyr waters, their bodies will already be failing them. Farther north, Soren stands in the shadow of a rocky ridge, the wind tugging at her cloak. Around her, her scouts melt into the tall grass, bows and short blades at the ready. She points toward the distant glint of a watchtower. 2 minutes after the sun dips behind that cliff, we move. Kill the signal men first. If they get one flare into the sky, we've lost our window. A scout approaches, whispering, "Patrol, 20 strong, moving along the ridge path." "Good," Soren says, a sharp edge in her tone. "We'll use their bodies to block the road, and keep the shadows thick. I don't want a single rider escaping." On the western cliff, Nassara crouches near a fissure in the rock, her pale hair catching flecks of sunlight. The air smells of dust and iron, old mines. She runs a hand along the ground, feeling for the hollow vibration. Her shield-bearers stand ready behind her, massive forms in heavy armor, shields like walls. "Collapse points here, here, and here," she says, marking spots with chalk. "Once the ground drops, we move in slow. We hold the breach while the others strike inside." To the south, Vertha coils along the edge of a forest road, her serpentine tail sweeping the dirt in deliberate patterns. Her fast units, slender, lightly armored fighters, fan out in the underbrush. She gestures with a flick of her wrist. "We cut their supply runners first. No bread, no arrows, no reinforcements. Then we circle back and strangle the survivors." By nightfall, all 4 fronts are in motion. Silent strikes, shifting shadows, collapsing earth, poisoned water. Each piece of the siege sliding into place. The city ahead doesn't yet know it, but the hunt has already begun. Inside the city, the walls of Virthane creak under the weight of stationed soldiers. The smell of pitch and oil clings to the air, ready for the first hint of fire. From atop the eastern gate, Captain Rolf watches the river churn beneath the drawbridge. "Currents stronger than usual," a guard mutters beside him. Rolf grunts. Spring melt from the mountains. Won't stop a determined army. He scans the tree line beyond the far bank, eyes narrowing. Still, too quiet. In the northern watchtower, Captain Lemus leans over the railing, squinting into the distance. He's been on shift since before dawn, and the only movement he's seen is the slow sway of grass. Until now, something ripples in the field, a pattern that shouldn't be there. His gut clenches. "Messenger," he barks. "Tell the West Post to." The words die in his throat as a dark shape detaches from the shadows below. A glint of steel, a blur of motion, then silence. Down in the Western District, the miners' quarter smells of damp stone and coal dust. Most of the tunnels were sealed years ago after repeated cave-ins, but a handful remain open for storage. A group of militia stand near one of these old shafts, dice rattling in a wooden cup. The ground shifts under them, subtle at first, then with a sudden crack. One man shouts, "The wall!" But the warning is swallowed by a thunderous roar as the street collapses, dragging 2 houses and a guard post down into the darkness. At the southern gate, the mood is more restless. The cavalry commander, Lady Mara, reins in her horse as another dust-choked rider stumbles in from the road. His uniform is torn, his face pale. "They hit the supply train," he gasps. "No survivors. They knew our route." Mara's jaw tightens. "Then the enemy's closer than we thought." She turns to the signaler. "Red flare now." The flare arcs skyward, hissing, but in the distance, where the smoke should rise above the northern ridge, nothing answers. In the War Council chamber, the city lord slams his fist on the table as a messenger delivers the 3rd report in under an hour. Eastern Watchtower silent. Northern patrol missing. Western quarter collapse. Southern supplies gone. The old general beside him exhales slowly. "They're not attacking yet." The governor's voice sharpens. "Then what are they doing?" The general's gaze drifts to the shuttered windows, as if he can see the enemy moving unseen through the dark. "They're closing the jaws." The last bell of the day has barely faded when the first unnatural howl cuts through the air. It comes from the east, long, low, and resonating with a strange vibration that makes the iron hinges on the gates quiver. The soldiers on the wall flinch, gripping their weapons tighter. Down in the streets, dogs whimper and hide under carts. From the river mist, shadows begin to take form. Not boats, shapes moving through the water. Sleek, serpentine bodies break the surface for a heartbeat before sliding back under. The current that should have been their shield now becomes the perfect cover for scaled forms with glinting eyes. Veltha rises from the water first, his tail curling over the parapet in a surge of strength that sends 2 defenders tumbling into the river. Behind him, thousands of lesser serpentine warriors clamber up with dripping weapons, their hissed war cries echoing in the fog. In a small house near the river, a boy presses his forehead to the cold glass of his window. The night is quiet except for the faint rush of water, but his eyes are fixed, unblinking on the dark surface. He doesn't move, doesn't even seem to hear the floor creak behind him. "Why are you still up?" His mother's voice snaps, sharp with fatigue and frustration. "You need to sleep now. We have a lot to do in the morning." The boy doesn't answer. Her irritation turns into a frown. "Did you hear me?" She walks closer, ready to scold him again, but as she follows his gaze, her breath catches. From the river's black mirror, shapes begin to rise. First just ripples, then slick backs, then glistening claws. 1, 3, a dozen. More. Her voice trembles. "Gods!" The boy still doesn't move, his small hands gripping the windowsill. In an instant, she grabs him, tearing him away from the glass. "No looking, hold on to me." He starts to protest, but her arms tighten as she races through the narrow hallway. The floorboards groan under her pounding steps. Behind them, the night fills with wet, guttural growls. She bursts through the back door into the cold air, running toward the old root cellar half buried in the earth. The child clings to her neck, now silent, his face pressed against her shoulder. The sound of water slapping against stone grows louder. Something is climbing the bank. She doesn't look back. She throws open the cellar door, shoving him inside, and follows, slamming it shut just as the first heavy thud lands on the porch. Screams erupt before the first alarm bell can ring. A baker in the market square freezes mid-shout as a shadow lunges from between the soldiers, black claws slashing through wood and flesh alike. Crates spill fruit into the street, the bright colors rolling across cobblestones now splattered with blood. At the eastern gate, the captain shoves through the panicking soldiers. "Shut the gate! Shut!" His order dies as he sees it. The massive doors stand wide open, hinges dripping with fresh blood instead of oil. A pair of sentries lie crumpled at the threshold, throats torn out. The eastern wall is chaos. Corporal Diran grips his spear tighter, boots sliding in the wet stone as he pushes against the flow of retreating guards. "Hold the line! Back to the gate!" Someone shouts from above. "They're inside! They're already inside!" Diran's stomach knots. "What do you mean inside?" "The gates are." His words choke as he rounds the corner. "They are open. Not broken. Not smashed. Just open." The massive timbers gape like the mouth of some great beast, and beyond them, more shapes pour in from the mist, scaled, hulking, silent but for the soft slap of their feet on wet stone. "Close them!" Diran bellows, but the winch team is gone. Their posts are empty except for a dropped lantern spilling oil across the platform. The smell is sharp, stinging his nose. A soldier beside him whispers, "They were supposed to be outside," as if saying it could change the truth. Another voice shouts from somewhere up the wall, high and panicked, "The market! They're in the market already." Diran's mind races. How? The gates are open, yes, but they would have had to cross half the city in moments. Unless they were already here. A shadow blurs at the edge of his vision. Something drops from the wall. Too fast, too silent. A scream cuts short, followed by the clang of a sword hitting stone. Diran spins, but the alley is empty except for the sprawled body of the man who had been speaking to him moments ago. His throat is gone. The air is thick now with smoke and the copper tang of blood. Bells ring from 3 different directions, their uneven rhythm telling him everything. No coordination, no defense. Across the city, flames begin to spread from rooftop to rooftop, not by accident but with purpose. He catches sight of one figure, a tall woman with blade-like limbs, leaping the gaps between houses, cutting down anyone who flees. Her eyes glint once in the firelight before she's gone. The old soldier mutters, eyes narrowing. "Gods help us." They knew every alley, every choke point. And then, like a candle snuffed in the dark, the resistance falters. Diran fights his way back toward the plaza, only to find the flagstones littered with bodies, soldiers and civilians alike. Above the chaos, the banner of the city hangs torn, its colors drenched and dark. By the time the 4th bell should ring, there is no one left to pull the rope. And just like that, the city falls in hours, not days, not weeks. Hours. Smoke drifts low over the streets. Somewhere beyond the river, the victors are already planting their banners. The council chamber smells faintly of ink and heated wax. The meeting has only just ended, and the representatives of other forces file out in clusters, speaking in low, clipped voices. War maps still sprawl across the long table, their edges curling under the heat of nearby candles. Valira lingers for a moment, letting the murmurs fade. Her eyes scan the marked battlefronts, the northeast and the west, both bleeding red ink from the enemy's advance. The west is bad, yes, but the northeast is collapsing faster than reports predicted. She turns as one of the Yosha ministers approaches, bowing slightly. "Lady Valira, the Ashej forces will be welcomed wherever you choose to deploy. His Majesty thanks you for coming all this way." Valira nods, but her voice is firm. "Tell him I've decided on the northeast. That's where the enemy is striking hardest." The minister hesitates. "The west is where most of the high-ranking nobles hold their territories." Let the others hold the west." Valira cuts in sharply. "If the northeast falls, there won't be a west left to defend." From the other side of the chamber, one of her commanders, an older Tier 6 with braided gray hair, steps forward. "My lady, the scouts say the monsters there are not ordinary. Their vanguard moves like they know the land. Cities fall in hours." Valira meets his gaze without flinching. "Good. Then we'll see if they know how to fight me." Above the sprawling expanse of the Watervale clan city, the sky darkens, not from clouds, but from the sheer weight of killing intent radiating downward. Mazel stands in the air as if the wind itself holds him aloft, his obsidian armor glinting faintly under the dim light. His eyes sweep over the massive city below, not small like a kingdom's capital, but vast, sprawling far beyond the horizon. Clans may only have one city, but that one city is a fortress, a behemoth built on centuries of poured resources, layered wards, and walls that dwarf mountains. Behind him, the air ripples. One by one, his 4 commanders take their places in the air. 2 are high-level tier SIXS, their presence like storms chained in human form. The other 2, middle-level tier SIXS, radiate lethal precision, sharp, focused, unyielding. And beneath them, 500,000 monster soldiers. The ground below is a seething ocean of claws, fangs, and armor, each formation disciplined, not a step out of line. Banners ripple in the wind. Mazel lets the silence stretch for a heartbeat, the wind tugging faintly at his black cloak. Then he speaks, voice dropping like a hammer. Form the advance ranks. Spread the vanguard wide. I want pressure on every inch of that shield. Yes, General. All 4 bow slightly before vanishing in streaks of light toward their assigned positions. Below, the disciplined monster army shifts like a single organism. Siege weapons, each the size of small house, lumber forward. Tier 5 commanders bark orders, and the deep thrum of war drums begins to roll across the battlefield like distant thunder. From the city walls, defenders watch with grim faces. Mazel's voice is low, yet it rolls across the battlefield like a tide, carried by power rather than wind. Humans, he says, every word dripping with calm certainty. Before I attack, I will give you a choice. Surrender now and become subordinates of my king, and you will live. The words hang in the air, almost heavy enough to press on the chest. Murmurs ripple along the battlements. Archers glance at each other. Spears shift in sweaty palms. A grizzled guard spits over the wall. Subordinates to monsters? I'd rather my bones bleach in the sun. Another snarls. Let him come. We'll die on our feet, not kneel like dogs. But for every voice raised in defiance, there are others that stay silent, eyes flickering with doubt. Then a sharp whistle cuts through the noise. From the inner court, a surge of water bursts skyward, shimmering under the dim light, spiraling higher and higher until it forms a narrow column that seems to pierce the heavens. At its peak, a figure steps from the torrent as if the water itself bore her weight. Her armor gleams with a faint blue hue, runes etched along the pauldrons, and her cloak ripples with an enchantment that never touches the wind. In her hand, a spear of pure liquid crystal reforms with each droplet that falls from its length. The defenders roar in recognition. The clan leader, someone shouts, relief cutting through the fear. My clan, she says, will not surrender to monsters. The water around her churns in response to her words, forming a storm that coils and twists like living serpents. We are Watervale. Our walls are rivers, our hearts the sea. You may break against us, but you will never claim us. Her declaration slams into the defenders like a war drum. Her declaration slams into the defenders like a war drum. Archers lift their bows again. Mages press their hands to the runes along the battlements, feeding mana into the city's wards. Even the uncertain among them straighten, their fear tempered into resolve. Mazel only watches her for a moment, expression unreadable. Then, a faint, amused breath escapes him. So be it, he says. His gauntlet hand rises slowly. The choice was given. Now I will take the city. His hand falls. The drums of the monster army thunder louder, and the ground begins to shake. The enemy lines part. From between the formations, the siege weapons roll forward, massive constructs of blackened steel and rune-carved timber, each mounted on colossal wheels wrapped in scaled monster hide. Even the veterans on the wall mutter curses under their breath. But these aren't the usual boulder throwers or crude rams. Each towering frame carries a crystal sphere the size of a cart, cradled in an intricate cradle of glowing sigils. Elemental runes shimmer across the surface, shifting in color. Red for fire, brown for earth, pale blue for wind, and deep azure for water, cycling faster as mana floods into them. They're feeding them mana stones. The mage captain mutters, eyes narrowing. High-grade ones. The output gods above, that's not siege firepower, that's destruction made manifest. On Mazel's order, the first weapon tilts its cradle upward. A surge of light pulses, followed by the deep hum of runes coming alive. Then, with a thunderous crack, the first elemental shot tears through the sky, a roaring sphere of flame wrapped in spiraling winds. The moment it slams into the shimmering dome of Watervale's shield, the barrier quivers like a struck drum. The heat ripples across the sky, scattering droplets from the water storm coiled around the clan leader. "Brace!" The mage on the wall shouts, his voice straining. "They're testing for weaknesses." Another boom, this time a sphere of compressed earth, strikes the shield, sending tremors through the ward pylons buried deep in the walls. A younger soldier grips his spear tight. "The shield will hold, right?" "It will," the older sergeant says, though his eyes don't leave the siege weapons. "If it doesn't," he doesn't finish. The third shot comes, pure water mana condensed into a crushing torrent, detonating on impact with enough force to make the barrier shimmer dangerously thin for a heartbeat. Clan leader Kore's voice cuts sharply across the battlements. "Ready the retaliatory batteries. Load the heavy ballistae. Mages, channel for arc fire. Gears grind, winches creak, and the clan's siege platforms turn outward, aiming their iron-banded bolts toward the advancing enemy. Mana cannons hum faintly as crystals glow within their housings. But compared to the behemoth weapons of the monster army, Watervale's engines look almost fragile, fine tools of human craft, not the devastating war machines that roar before them. The first volley smashes against the shimmering barrier in front of the enemy lines, an oval of pale crimson light held aloft by a towering, horned figure. The shield-bearers doesn't even flinch. Fierce skill radiates like molten glass, absorbing every blow and bleeding the energy harmlessly into the ground. "Tch. They're not even scratched," Kore mutters under her breath. Far beyond the lines, Mazel raises a single hand. "Enough stalling. Break their shell." In the blink of an eye, four figures vanish from his side. The air ripples as they appear above the city's barrier. 4 Tier 6 commanders, each cloaked in killing intent thick enough to suffocate lesser men. "Hit it hard." The first snarls, his blade a black arc as he strikes. Boom! The dome flares under the impact, runes screaming with strain. But the Watervale clan's own Tier SIXS are already moving. From the heart of the city, pillars of water erupt skyward, parting to reveal 4 figures, each radiating enough power to warp the very air around them. "You dare!" One of them bellows, a warhammer forming from solid ice in his grip. And then collision. The first exchange is blinding. Steel meets steel, magic meets magic, and the skies above the city detonate in sound and light. The shockwaves alone send clouds tearing apart and blast the rain into steam. One of Mazel's commanders, wreathed in black fire, drives a flaming fist into the barrier while fending off a spear thrust aimed for his throat. His opponent, Watervale's fastest Tier 6, moves like lightning, each strike sending ripples through the air. On the other side, a female commander cloaked in shadow draws a crescent of pure darkness, cleaving a water serpent in half. The serpent bursts into a storm of droplets that reform instantly into a coiling wave, slamming her back with crushing force. The battlefield above the city becomes an apocalypse. Blinding flashes, screaming winds, torrents of water turn to vapor by fire so hot it glows white. The air tastes of ozone and blood. Below, the siege weapons keep hammering the barrier in perfect rhythm with each clash in the sky, trying to force a breach. And somewhere in the center of it all, Mazel watches calmly, as though the end of the world is simply the beginning of his plan. From her vantage on the wall, Kore never lets her gaze drift far from him. Mazel stands there, still as a monolith in the storm, his hands folded behind his back, watching the battle above like a man surveying a chessboard. She knows if he moves, it won't be to test the defenses, it'll be to end them. Her grip tightens around her spear. Every instinct screams at her to retreat, to flee far from the suffocating aura that coils off him like smoke. Even from here, her skin prickles and her lungs feel heavy. That one, she murmurs under her breath, isn't a man I should be near. The old man beside her hears the tone but not the words. Lady Corey? Nothing, she says quickly, eyes still fixed on Mazel. Because the truth is, she's no fool. She's a high-level tier 6, one of the strongest in Watervale, but against him, that strength would shatter in moments. Still, she isn't defenseless. Her mind flickers to the marks she carries, the bindings that hum faintly beneath her skin, invisible to the eye. A web of oaths and contracts carved into the very soul of her. A shiver runs down her spine as Mazel's head turns, just slightly. His gaze sweeping across the wall until it meets hers. For a heartbeat, the sounds of battle fade beneath the pounding of her pulse. His expression doesn't change, but there's something in his eyes, recognition, or perhaps interest. Lady Corey, the commander says urgently, another volley incoming. She forces herself to look away, raising her spear. Keep firing. Don't let the barrier have even a single crack. The fight has raged for an hour now. Every strike, every explosion, every clash of power has left the city's shield webbed with cracks that crawl like ice over glass. The barrier groans under the strain. Lines of pale light split across its surface, each one spreading faster than the last. Mages on the walls are drenched in sweat, their faces pale, hands trembling as they keep pouring mana into the runes. But they all know it. Once the shield breaks, the real carnage will begin. Corey's voice cuts through the chaos, clear and unyielding. Be ready, everyone. Defend this place with your life. Protect your families. Her declaration slams into the defenders like a war drum. Archers draw back their bows with renewed force. Pikemen plant their weapons against the stone, bracing themselves. Mages grit their teeth, their spells burning hotter. Even the greenest soldier on the wall swallows his fear and sets his jaw. A deep rumble shakes the air. Another volley. The first elemental sphere, fire entwined with wind, screams down and slams into the barrier. The sky turns white-hot, heat slamming into every face on the wall. Before the light fades, the second shot, a boulder of compressed earth, hits from another angle, the ground lurching under their feet. Hold! Hold! A captain roars. Above, the tiers XS are still locked in a storm of steel and magic. Blinding arcs of light, shockwaves that tear the clouds apart, torrents of water hissing into vapor against searing flame. Every clash sends spiderweb fractures racing across the barrier below them. One particularly brutal exchange, the two slamming their full power into each other, makes a section of the shield overhead shatter outward like brittle glass before the runes stitch it closed again. The sound of it, sharp and final, sends a shiver through every soldier's spine. The inevitable happens. With a sound like a mountain splitting in two, the barrier finally gives way, shards of pale light exploding outward before fading into the stormy air. For a heartbeat, the city stands frozen, the defenders staring in stunned silence at the gaping wound in their shield. Mazel's lips curl into a faint smile. Advance, he says, no louder than a calm breath, yet his voice cuts through the battlefield as if carried by the wind itself. The monsters move. From the breach, dozens of hulking humanoid figures surge forward, each at least twice the height of a man, their bodies armored in chitin and jagged bone. Eyes gleam in unnatural colors, crimson, gold, and sickly green, while weapons forged from the best blacksmith, their rune metal gleam under the rain. The front rank doesn't charge blindly. They move with chilling coordination, shield-bearing brutes forming a wall while lean, long-limbed killers slip between them, their claws clicking in anticipation. Behind them, casters with warped staves lift their weapons to the sky, their guttural chants twisting the air. Archers, Corey shouts, her voice sharp as steel. Cut them down before they hit the wall. The first volley arcs high, raining down on the advancing tide. Several monsters crumple, arrows buried deep in their skulls. But others raise shields of black stone or simply catch the shafts mid-flight and snap them like twigs. Then the real fight begins. The sky and the ground are filled. Above, Tier 5s clash like gods in the storm. Swords that split clouds, spells that boil the rain, shockwaves that flatten rooftops with every strike. Below, the field outside the walls churns with bodies, thousands of monsters pressing forward like an endless tide, their shrieks and war drums drowning the cries of men. The Watervale warriors on the wall stare wide-eyed, their faces pale under the firelight. By the gods! One whispers, his bow trembling in his grip. Another mutters hoarsely, "How are we going to defend this?" "Shut your mouths!" a captain snarls, shoving them back into line. "You want to live? Then fight!" The wall erupts in motion. Spells flare. Lances of fire, bolts of lightning, spears of ice. Raining into the first wave. Arrows darken the sky. Stones spell hurled from trebuchets smash into the monsters below, scattering blood and limbs. But the tide doesn't stop. A shield brute with a body like a fortress slams into the wall of pikes. Spears crunch uselessly against its armor, snapping like twigs. With one sweep of its massive club, it sends a dozen men flying. Their screams cut short as they crash against the stones. "Bring it down!" Corey roars, vaulting from the parapet in a burst of blue light. She meets the brute mid-swing, her spear crackling with frost. With a twist, she drives the point under its arm, where the plates don't meet. Ice explodes outward, freezing its inside solid. The creature staggers, roaring, before Corey whirls and smashes the butt of her spear into its chest, shattering it into 100 frozen shards. The soldiers cheer, but it's cut short as 3 more brutes rush forward, their weapons raised. Overhead, 2 flying figures crash into the wall's edge. One human, one monster, both Tier 5. They exchange blows at blinding speed, steel against claw, sparks spraying with every strike. The shock waves alone knock soldiers from the battlements like leaves in a gale. "Stay back!" The Tier 5 human bellows, kicking his foe into the air and launching after him. The 2 vanish upward in a blur, their fight continuing among the storm clouds. But more follow. A pack of lean, 4-armed killers scrambles up the ladders, moving like spiders. Their claws tear through shields, helmets, and flesh alike. A young warrior barely has time to scream before one rips him apart. "Hold the wall!" a veteran shouts, driving his blade through one's neck, only for another to leap on him and tear his throat out in the same breath. The wall runs red. The wall is chaos. Blood sprays, screams echo. The crash of spells and steel never stops. Yet Corey's eyes keep flicking back, past the carnage, past the press of monsters, to him. Mazel. He hasn't lifted a hand. Not once. He only watches, the stormlight painting his pale features in silver. Even standing still, his presence presses on the battlefield like a mountain. Soldiers don't even realize they keep glancing at him, shivering as though winter crawled down their spines. Corey knows it. Every instinct tells her that the battle raging now, the walls painted in fire and blood, the clash of Tier 5s above, is nothing more than spectacle to him. Prologue. Her knuckles whiten on her spear. If she hesitates, if she waits until he chooses to act, there will be no city left to defend. So she makes the choice. With a burst of mana, she propels herself skyward, blue light trailing her form like a comet. The storm wind tears at her cloak as she rises, higher and higher until she hovers at his height. Mazel's head turns toward her, calm as a man turning to greet a guest. He tilts his chin slightly, eyes narrowing just the faintest fraction. "You're the leader of this clan?" His voice rolls low and steady, yet it reverberates like a bell across the battlefield. Corey steadies herself against the weight of it. Her voice comes sharp and clear. "Yes, I am. I'm Corey of Watervale." For a moment, silence stretches. Rain patters against the invisible barrier of his aura before sliding off in rivulets, unable to touch him. Mazel studies her, Then the faintest smile curves his lips. You do know, he says softly. With your level, you won't even scratch me. Kore's chest tightens, but she doesn't flinch. I know. She shifts her spear, the tip catching the stormlight like a shard of ice. But don't underestimate the Watervale clan. Her voice hardens, slicing through the air. Use it now. The words echo like thunder across the city. In an instant, the three mage towers flare to life. Their runes blaze, casting the skyline in blinding gold. Symbols, vast, intricate, spiral into being above each tower, humming with power. The towers pulse once, then streams of light lance upward, converging toward Kore in a lattice of radiance. Threads of pure magic weave around her, wrapping her in a cloak of power not her own. The sky itself trembles. Mazel's eyes narrow, though the faint smile never leaves his face. Borrowed power, he says, his voice dropping colder, heavier. He doesn't move, yet the air thickens. Good. Now it doesn't feel like I'm bullying you. Kore lifts her spear, now blazing with the power of three towers channeled through her bindings. Her hair whips wildly in the storm, her aura swelling until even the soldiers below turn to look up in awe. She meets his gaze, steady and unyielding. Then watch closely. Let me show you what I can do with this borrowed power. The storm splits open with the clash of two titans. Mazel exhales slowly, the chains on his twin war axes rattling like serpents hungry for blood. His chest swells, and then, Tier 6, Battle Fury. The roar isn't just sound. It's a tidal wave of mana, a war cry. The very sky shudders. Crimson fire explodes from his body, a dome of fury expanding outward. Every monster on the field convulses, then howls as strength floods into them. Their claws sharpen, their eyes blaze red, their muscles bulge with unnatural vigor. Even the weakest gnarl at the walls like beasts unchained, while the brutes slam their weapons harder, shaking the fortifications to the core. Kore staggers under the weight of it, her spear trembling in her hands. He's buffing all of them, every single one. Without warning, he moves. One instant he is still, the next, his war axes blur through the storm, chains snapping taut as he swings. Tier 5, Ashen Sundering. Flames surge along the twin blades as he brings them crashing down. The air itself splits, a fissure of molten fire tearing toward Kore. Kore thrusts her spear forward. Tier 5, Glacial Bastion. A wall of crystalline ice erupts before her, glowing with the power of the towers. Fire meets frost in a blinding detonation. Steam exploding outward, washing the sky white. Through the haze, Mazel barrels in, chain axes whirling. One hook of burning steel slams against her spear, the other comes for her side. Kore twists, kicking off a platform of conjured ice. The blow grazes her, tearing through her shoulder guard, molten sparks hissing against her skin. Kore's eyes flash. Tier 5, Frozen Step. She vanishes into a burst of frost, reappearing an instant later above him, spear raised. The towers surge, funneling torrents of power into her weapon until it glows with blinding blue. Tier 6, Skyfrost Impale. She dives, driving her spear downward with the weight of the storm itself. Mazel raises both axes, chains tightening around his arms. His aura flares, fire and wrath merging into a single storm. Tier 6, Infernal Breaker. The clash is apocalyptic. Spear meets axe in a shockwave that splits clouds for miles. Fire and frost explode outward, raining shards of ice and embers over the battlefield. Soldiers below are thrown from their feet, monsters crushed by falling debris, towers shaking under the force. For a heartbeat, they lock there, Kore pressing down with borrowed might, Mazel holding with brute strength and fury. The air between them screams, fracturing from the strain. Kore grits her teeth, sweat freezing on her brow. I'll show you. That Watervale doesn't bow, she growls. Mazel laughs, a booming, terrible sound. Good. Show me your defiance, so I can burn it to ash. On the northern wall, Another duel has already pushed past the limits of human endurance. A Tier 6 of Watervale, called Renler, strikes again and again at the commander of Mazel's unit, a monster of jagged stone and sinew whose 4 burning eyes never blink. Renler's halberd crackles with layered runes, his every swing carving furrows of power into the ground. Fall, damn you! Renler bellows, driving his weapon down. The commander blocks with one plated arm, the impact splitting the earth like an earthquake. Dust and sparks explode outward. You struggle. The monster's voice rumbles, deep as a cave. But struggle only feeds the grave. Renler spits blood, his teeth bared. Graves are for monsters like you. He kicks forward, halberd whirling in a storm of arcs. Cutting, thrusting, slamming with brutal precision. Each strike leaves glowing scars across the commander's body. Soldiers nearby cheer, hope flickering in their eyes. Then hope dies. The commander plants both hands into the earth. Tier 6. Abyssal Maw. The ground beneath Renler heaves, then opens. A jagged chasm splits the battlefield, lined with snapping jaws of molten stone. Heat sears the air. Renler leaps, halberd spinning. Tier 6. Waterbreaker Cleave. He drops like a waterfall, smashing straight into the commander's chest. The monster stumbles, cracks shatter its plated hide. For a heartbeat, it looks as if victory is within reach. But the commander does not fall. His 4 eyes blaze with hellfire. Not enough. Its clawed hand shoots forward, piercing straight through Renler's chest. The halberd slips from numb fingers. Sir Renler! A soldier screams, voice full of desperate hope. Renler gasps, blood spilling from his lips. His eyes dart to the walls, to his men, to the city he swore to protect. His voice is weak, but carries. Don't falter. Watervale stands. The claws twist. His body convulses, then goes limp. Marshal! Voices scream from the wall. A dozen soldiers break formation, rushing forward, only to be torn down as the commander wrenches Renler's corpse free and hurls it into the mud. The body hits the ground with a hollow thud. His halberd lands beside him, its runes guttering out like dying stars. Silence follows for a heartbeat. Then despair ripples through the defenders like poison. The commander lifts its head to the storming sky and roars, a sound that drowns even the thunder. One of your pillars has fallen. Humans crumbles. Soldiers flinch, their grips faltering, their formation wavering. On the wall, a captain grips his blade until his knuckles turn white. His voice cracks as he shouts above the panic. Hold the line. Don't let his death be in vain. Fight! Damn you, fight! The cries of the captain cut through the chaos, but no matter what he shouts, the hearts of Watervale's warriors are already breaking. Men glance toward Renler's fallen form and feel their courage bleed away. Shields lower, spears tremble, formations crack. The monsters sense it, hunger igniting in their burning eyes. And then, as if on cue, the commander who felled Renler throws back its head and bellows, a guttural roar that shakes the walls. Other monster commanders answer in unison, their cries stitching together into one dreadful chorus. The effect is immediate. Monsters surge like a black tide. 2 Tier 5 commanders break off, their immense frames barreling across the battlefield to reinforce their kin. Where once the clash was balanced, desperate, but even now the weight tilts. The monsters strike harder, faster, tearing into wavering lines. Human screams rise in place of war cries. The walls of Watervale, so long unbroken, shudder beneath the pounding assault. Above, Kore staggers back, her cloak of borrowed light fraying under the relentless storm of Mazel's fury. Cuts mar her arms, blood streaks down her cheek, her breathing ragged. Her spear hand shakes as she steadies herself on a half-shattered platform of ice. Mazel doesn't press. He watches her with a predator's patience, flames wreathing his massive frame. His voice rolls out heavy as thunder, cruelly calm. It looks like this is the end. Kore forces herself upright, planting her spear to keep from falling. Her hair clings to her face, soaked with sweat and rain. Her chest heaves, but her eyes, though dimmed, do not yield. She spits blood into the storm, then meets his gaze. Not while I still stand. Mazel's smile spreads, slow and merciless. Stand, then. Break every bone if you must. Struggle until your breath fails. He hefts his twin axes, the chains rattling like funeral bells. It changes nothing. Watervale falls today. Kore steadies herself, the weight of his words pressing against her ribs like chains. Her body is trembling, but not from fear. Her resolve holds. She tightens her grip on her spear, then suddenly asks, her voice raw but clear through the storm. "What's your name?" Mazel tilts his head, faintly amused. "Mazel, general of the Aravaris kingdom." Her lips curve in a tired, blood-stained smile. "Do you believe in gods, Mazel?" For the first time he falters. His brow furrows, though his stance never loosens. "No. If my king becomes a god, then I will believe in him. Nothing else." He narrows his eyes. "Are you done with these questions? You did well with just a borrowed power, but this is where it ends." Kore breathes heavily, her fingers slipping on her blood-slick spear shaft. "I did well? No." She shakes her head, forcing her gaze to bore into his. "You held back. The whole fight. You never once used your full strength." Mazel does not deny it. His silence is heavier than admission. Kore exhales shakily. Then, closing her eyes, she kneels on the drifting shard of ice. Her voice softens into a murmur, words rolling like ripples over water. "O great Lycerus, eternal tide, keeper of the deep, I have walked your banks and called your name. I have fought with strength not my own, but let me now fight with all of me. Take my breath, my blood, my body. Let the rivers of my life spill into your sea. In return, lend me your tide, so that Watervale may not drown this day." The mark etched along her collarbone flares to life, spreading like glowing veins across her body. Azure light seeps from her skin, weaving into streams that circle her form. The air grows heavy with the scent of rain and salt. Her aura surges, climbing, straining, then breaking past its borrowed shell. Her hair rises, drenched in pale light. Her spear becomes a shard of ocean itself, dripping with currents that hiss and twist in the storm. Kore suddenly screams, a sound so raw it pierces through the storm and battlefield alike. Her body convulses violently as if it's tearing itself apart. Blue veins of light crawl across her skin, bursting from her collarbone mark. Blood streams from her mouth, nose, and ears, yet the glow only grows brighter. Her eyes roll back, then turn completely white. The air around her warps, trembling under the weight of her power. Her aura surges upward, growing wilder, heavier, almost touching the threshold of a quasi-tier 7. The atmosphere bends with it. Waves of mana crash outward like tidal surges, shaking the heavens themselves. The soldiers on the wall stagger, some collapsing to their knees under the crushing weight. Even the monsters below pause mid-swing, their snarls turning uneasy. And Mazel? He smiles. His crimson eyes burn hotter, and his chains rattle as his chest heaves with exhilaration. He doesn't retreat, doesn't flinch. His blood is boiling, every fiber of him screaming for battle. This is it. He growls, his grin splitting wider. "Since the day this invasion began, I haven't had a single fight worth remembering. But you make my blood sing." Kore's body jerks, no longer moving with will but with instinct alone. She lunges. Her spear whistles through the storm, a tidal wave condensed into a single strike. Mazel brings his twin axes up, chains coiling as he crosses them to block. The clash is apocalyptic. A deafening boom shatters the air. The impact throws Mazel like a meteor across the battlefield. He crashes through the mountainside in the distance, the stone exploding apart in a thunderous landslide. For a moment, silence. Then from the cloud of dust and falling rock, laughter. Ha 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 ha. Mazel's roar of joy echoes like a war drum, shaking both heaven and earth. He steps from the ruin, battered but unbroken, fire blazing from his form. This is it. This is what I've been waiting for. He spreads his arms wide, and the ground cracks beneath him. His aura flares outward, no longer restrained. 6 tier 6 buffs ignite across his body in a blinding blaze. Chains blaze with infernal heat. His axes glow like molten suns, and the very sky darkens under the pressure. His killing intent surges, drowning the battlefield like an ocean of flame and steel. The weight of his aura slams down over everything. On the walls, soldiers collapse to the ground, clutching their chests, their lungs crushed by the sheer force. Monsters and humans alike freeze mid-motion, their bodies trembling against the suffocating oppression. Even the commanders among the enemy horde snarl and falter, their bloodlust swallowed by the sheer dominance of Mazel's presence. He looks across the distance at Kore, his grin sharp and feral. Come then, human. Whatever you've become, show me. Kore does not answer with words. Her head tilts back and she lets out a sound no longer human. A primal scream, like a beast tearing its throat apart. Her spear shudders in her hands as if alive, the ocean itself roaring through the weapon. She launches forward. The storm splits in her wake, clouds shearing apart as though the sky itself is being stabbed. Her spear thrusts, glowing with tidal light, the pressure of the strike enough to tear the air into ribbons. Mazel meets her charge, his grin savage. His twin axes blaze like suns, their chains coiling around his arms like serpents. He swings. The collision is cataclysm. The moment their weapons meet, the air detonates. Shockwaves rip across the battlefield, tearing trees from the earth, flattening fortifications, and splitting the land into jagged ravines. The walls of Watervale groan under the pressure, whole sections of stone cracking and collapsing as the sheer force ripples outward. Soldiers are thrown like leaves in a hurricane. Monsters are shredded where they stand, their bodies bursting apart from the backlash. And still, neither Kore nor Mazel yield. Mazel bellows, his crimson aura igniting into flame. Tier 6, Infernal Cataclysm. His axes blaze, vomiting waves of molten fire that spiral outward. The ground liquefies into rivers of lava as his skill manifests, the battlefield itself burning into a volcanic wasteland. Kore roars back, thrusting her spear into the heart of the inferno. Tier 6, Ocean's Judgment. Her weapon explodes with a torrent of endless water, an entire sea crashing down in a single breath. Walls of tide and storm burst forth, swallowing flame, tearing apart earth and sky alike. Fire and water collide. The two forces consume each other in a storm of chaos, steam screaming skyward as molten rivers meet unending tide. The heavens roar, the earth quakes, and Watervale itself trembles as if the world cannot contain their fury. Through the boiling mist, their silhouettes clash again. Kore thrusts, her body jerking with unnatural force, her spear carving whirlpools into the air. Mazel's chains snap forward, axes spinning like meteors, cutting through ocean and storm alike. Each strike bends the battlefield closer to annihilation. The clash escalates beyond reason. Kore's spear thrusts again and again, faster than the eye can follow. Her body a puppet of divine instinct, moving with no hesitation, no thought, only the command to destroy. Each blow carves rifts in the air, her strikes ripping open seams of pure mana. Her cracked flesh glows faintly, the white light bleeding from inside her like a star burning through paper. Mazel meets her with savage joy, every swing of his axes fueled by his monstrous vitality. Sparks and molten shards spray as his weapons grind against her spear, their collision birthing endless shockwaves. His laughter echoes over the battlefield even as blood runs down his arms, even as bone shows through torn flesh. Ha ha ha! This is it. Break yourself on me. Kore doesn't respond. Her jaw is slack, her breathing ragged, eyes glowing void white. Her voice is gone, only the storm inside her speaks. Her next strike pierces through his guard. The spear tip carves across his chest, splitting through steel-hard flesh and sending a spray of blood into the rain. Mazel staggers back a step, then throws his head back and roars with exhilaration. His wound steams, flesh knitting around it almost instantly. Good. Again. Again. But her body can't take it. With every movement, Kore's skin splits wider, fractures racing across her arms and shoulders like shattered porcelain. Blood gushes, sizzling into steam against her burning aura. Her ribs strain, cracking under the unnatural surge of borrowed divinity. A soldier on the wall cries out in horror, voice shaking. Her body, she's tearing herself apart. Still, she pushes forward. Her spear surges, a tidal wave condensed into a blade of light. The strike lands, a decisive blow that hammers into Mazel's side, sending him crashing to one knee, the stone beneath him fracturing under the force. For a heartbeat, silence. Then he laughs. The wound is deep, bone deep, but his chains coil and his axes blaze, his aura swelling like a furnace that refuses to die. His smile is manic, eyes burning brighter than ever. Kore's body shudders violently. Her skin fissures, light spilling from the cracks, her blood no longer red but glowing azure. She stumbles, barely catching herself with her spear. Her breath rattles, her chest rising and falling as if she is drowning in her own power. Her last fragments of humanity flicker, then fade. Her body moves again, spear rising for another strike, the afterimage of a warrior who has already passed. The dead fighting the living. Her body is moments from collapse, yet that unknown instinct surging through her refuses to yield. It senses the end, senses the vessel crumbling, and in that fleeting moment decides, if death is inevitable, then let it be with everything. Her spear trembles, glowing violently. The waters gathering around her no longer flow like rivers. They rise like an entire ocean, pressing down from above, swallowing the sky itself. The clouds blacken, thunder cracks, and the heavens bow under the weight of a storm no mortal body should wield. Mazel's grin falters for the first time, crimson eyes widening. Not with fear, but with savage delight. Oh, a final struggle? The chains coiled around his body ignite, blazing red as molten light courses through them, as though they drink straight from his veins. He slams both axes together, the sound like thunder cracking the sky, and his roar ripples across the battlefield. Good. Then I'll answer with mine. My strongest. Kore's spear fractures in her hands, not from weakness, but from transformation. The weapon sings, reshaping as torrents of water spiral around it, forming a colossal lance made of pure oceanic force. Her body cracks further, glowing fissures racing across her flesh. She has seconds, perhaps less, before her vessel gives out. And in those seconds, that unknown instinct commands her to release it all. Her voice tears from her throat, broken yet divine. Tier 6 skill, abyssal deluge. The sky collapses. A hole opens above the battlefield, a vast churning vortex of water and storm. It isn't rain. It's an ocean, inverted and crashing downward, an abyss descending from the heavens. The spear in her hand swells into a tidal spear, every thrust dragging the entire sea with it, as if the world itself is drowning. The walls of Watervale quake as the incoming tide eclipses sight itself, a wall of crushing weight blotting out moon and stars. Soldiers can only stare, mouths open in awe and terror. And Mazel? His chains rattle wildly, his body shaking not from fear, but from ecstasy. He slams his axes into the ground, lava surging outward, veins of molten light spiderwebbing across the battlefield. He lifts his weapons, both now burning like twin suns. His voice booms, a proclamation of ruin. Tier 6 skill, Hell-Forged Annihilation. The ground ruptures. Columns of fire burst upward, thousands of flaming spires lancing skyward like the world's bones tearing free. His axes, cloaked in molten flame and infernal steel, carve arcs that drag whole continents of fire with them. Chains blaze like serpents of molten iron, lashing through the sky, binding it in a cage of fire. Then ocean and inferno meet. The abyssal deluge crashes downward, an endless tide of crushing water, while hell-forged annihilation surges upward, an inferno bent on consuming heaven itself. The collision is beyond sound. The world seems to end in silence before erupting in a deafening roar that tears eardrums. Steam, flame, and water engulf everything. The battlefield shakes as if the land itself is screaming, mountains in the distance fracturing, rivers reversing their flow. The sky tears open, black clouds shredded apart, exposing the raw void beyond. Soldiers are hurled from the walls, monsters incinerated or drowned in the backlash. Stone fortifications vanish as though they were sand. The sea and the fire do not simply cancel. They devour, clash, consume, and explode endlessly. The sky clears slowly. The black clouds torn apart by clash of sea and fire drift away, revealing faint light above. Smoke and steam roll over the battlefield, carrying the acrid scent of charred stone and scorched water. When the haze thins, two figures remain, floating in the broken air. Mazel hangs upright, his axes still in his hands, but his body is battered beyond recognition. His chest is carved open in deep wounds, blood dripping freely down his torso, his armor in tatters. Even so, his aura still burns, unbroken, defiant. Kore stands opposite him, or what's left of her. Her body is breaking apart piece by piece, glowing fragments flaking into the wind. Her legs are already gone below the knees, dissolving into streams of azure light. Her face is calm, but empty, like a statue crumbling in silence. Hush falls over Watervale. Soldiers on the walls and in the streets stare upward, their breaths caught in their throats. "El Lady Kore," someone whispers, voice trembling. The disintegration quickens. Her spear fades first, the oceanic lance unraveling into spray. Her arms follow, cracks racing through them until they collapse into dust. She doesn't cry out, doesn't resist. It's as if she accepts it. And then, in the final flicker of her light, she is gone. Nothing remains. No body, no weapon. Only motes of shimmering water drifting on the air, before the wind scatters them across the ruined city. A wave of despair crushes the Watervale warriors. Some fall to their knees, others grip their weapons with shaking hands. Their leader, the pillar they fought beside, has vanished before their eyes. "No!" a veteran mutters, tears streaking through soot on his face. "Not Lady Kore. Not like this. Clan leader!" Another voice cries, breaking into sobs. Even the proudest warriors cannot hold back their grief. For a moment, it seems the spirit of Watervale dies with her. Then Mazel descends. Slow, deliberate, his massive frame bleeding yet unbowed. His boots strike the cracked stone with weight enough to silence the cries. His axes drag beside him, leaving scorched lines as he plants himself before the broken gates of the city. His voice, rough yet steady, rolls over them like thunder. "As a respect for your clan leader," he says, each word heavy, "I will give you a second chance to surrender." The soldiers stiffen. None dare speak. "Surrendering," he continues, raising his head to meet their gazes, "does not mean slavery. You will live. You will keep your homes. But you will kneel as subjects under my king." Murmurs ripple through the ranks. Hope and shame battle in their voices. Some glare at him with hatred. Others stare at the ground, trembling with fear. Time stretches, the silence unbearable. Finally, one man steps forward. A weathered Tier 5 warrior, his armor dented and soaked in blood. His sword arm hangs limp, but his eyes are steady. He bows his head, voice cracking. "I surrender. My family still needs me." The words shatter the silence like a stone through glass. At first, only silence answers him. Dozens of eyes turn toward him, some filled with contempt, others with envy, others with weary understanding. He kneels, his blade clattering to the broken stones, and presses his forehead to the ground. Then another follows. A young soldier, barely more than a boy, grips his spear with shaking hands. His lips tremble, but his voice comes out clear enough to reach the walls. "I surrender too. My mother. She's waiting for me at home." One by one, voices rise. I can't throw my life away, not after everything she sacrificed to raise me. And my children. They won't grow up without a father. Besides, I'm certain Lady Corey would want us to keep living. Who are we to waste the life she fought for? The words spread like sparks on dry tinder. In moments, dozens throw down their weapons. Then hundreds. The sound of steel hitting stone fills the air. A chorus of surrender that rolls across the ruined city. Messengers ride through the night, hawks carrying sealed scrolls, runners darting along hidden roads. The news spreads faster than wildfire. The Watervale clan has fallen. Corey is dead. Watervale has surrendered to the monsters. By dawn, every subordinate kingdom and clan under the Empire knows. In the Ironspire Hall, where the Blackfang clan gathers, the clan leader slams his fist into the stone table. Cowards! They bent the knee before beasts. His voice echoes through the chamber, rattling weapons on the walls. One of his lieutenants sneers. Watervale always boasted of their discipline, of their honor. And yet they kneel like dogs at the first taste of true war. Another warrior spits on the floor. Better to die with a weapon in hand than bow your head to monsters. In the Crystal Kingdom, nobles sit within a shining palace of glass and light. The news reaches them at a banquet. A noblewoman raises her jeweled goblet, her lip curling. Watervale has stained the Empire's name. To yield is to admit weakness. An elder mage shakes his head, more thoughtful but no less bitter. They had Corey, one of the strongest among the 20 forces. If even she could not prevail, then perhaps surrender was inevitable. Do not dress cowardice as necessity, another noble snaps. When the monsters come for us, we will not kneel. In the Two Kingdom, where banners of gold and silver flutter, the royal court erupts in anger. The crown prince slams his chair back, standing tall. Pathetic! For generations, we fought to rise in the rankings, and now Watervale drops its blade like a common peasant. They shame every vassal under the Empire. A general, older and calmer, frowns deeply. Yet they chose survival. Perhaps they believe the Empire itself has abandoned them. The prince scoffs. No excuse. If two were in their place, we would burn the land to ash before bowing our heads. Across every hall, every council chamber, every war camp, the verdict is the same. Anger, disdain, accusations of cowardice. The surrender of Watervale shatters not only their honor, but the entire hierarchy of the 20 forces. Some forces even started questioning if the Watervale clan, ranked 12th, could not stand. What chance do the weaker forces have when their turn comes? Beneath the public outrage, whispers coil through the ranks like smoke. If the Watervale clan couldn't win, what hope do we, who are even weaker, have? If the monsters broke her, what will they do to us? Is survival cowardice or wisdom? The horns of Lafast City sound before the sun reaches its peak. From the high walls, banners unfurl in the breeze, crimson and gold, bearing the crest of Yosha. Below, the gates are thrown wide, and soldiers line the streets in precise formations. 100,000 men and women in polished armor stand at attention, shields gleaming, spears angled toward the sky. The air hums with anticipation. At the head of the reception, Lord Savon waits astride a black warhorse. His hair is streaked with silver, his eyes sharp as steel. Though his rank is only Tier 5, his presence radiates authority. He raises a gauntlet hand, signaling silence as the first thunder of hooves echoes down the distant road. Here they come, he murmurs, and then the dust cloud rises. The ground trembles as Valira's army approaches. A sea of 100,000 warriors, their armor glinting like rolling waves of steel. At the front rides Valira herself, her crimson cloak snapping behind her. Flanking her are the 2 Tier 6 warriors. One a towering man with scars crossing his arms, the other a woman with eyes as cold as winter. Their very presence makes the soldiers on the walls shift uneasily. When Valira draws close, Savon dismounts and steps forward, dropping to one knee with his head bowed low. Lady Valira of the Ashedge clan, he declares, his voice carrying through the ranks. Lafast City welcomes you. By order of His Majesty, the city and all its forces stand at your command. The soldiers echo as one, their voices booming. Welcome, Lady Valira. The sheer sound shakes the stones of the walls. Valira reins in her horse, her gaze sweeping across the lines of soldiers and the sprawling city behind them. She allows the moment to hang, then speaks, her tone sharp but steady. Rise, Lord Savon. We don't have time for ceremony. Lafast is the shield of Yosha's northeast. If it breaks, the kingdom falls. Savon straightens, his weathered face set in grim lines. The enemy pushes harder and conquering cities with each passing week. We've held so far, but... His eyes flick toward the scarred Tier 6 beside Valira. With your forces, the city will stand like iron. Valira swings down from her horse, boots striking the stone with a solid thud. She walks forward, pulling back her hood to reveal her face. Unbowed, unshaken. We're not here just to hold, she says firmly. We're here to crush them, to make sure every monster that looks at this city remembers its fear of humans. The scarred Tier 6 lets out a low grunt of approval. Heh, spoken like your father. Savon studies her for a long moment before bowing his head again, softer this time, almost in respect. Then Lafast is yours to command, Lady Valira. The streets erupt in cheers, soldiers pounding their spears against their shields. The sound rolls like thunder, spreading through the city. Valira takes in the sight, the men, the walls, the banners, and for the first time since leaving her father's hall, the weight on her shoulders feels steady. In the war room of Lafast, the air is heavy with tension. The long oak table is littered with maps, markers, and hastily written reports. Torches burn along the stone walls, their light flickering over hardened faces. Savon leans over the map, one gauntlet finger tracing the northern border. His voice is grim, steady. The enemy just conquered Zisa City. By our scouts' reckoning, it will take them 3 days to march here. They have no fewer than 400,000 troops, led by 5 Tier 5 monsters. A low murmur passes among the officers present. Valira, standing at the table's head, narrows her eyes. Her crimson cloak brushes the floor as she folds her arms. What about Tier 6 monsters? Savon shakes his head, lips tightening. We have no reports of Tier 6 among their ranks. But, he exhales sharply, frustration cutting his words. For some reason, the enemy knows every weakness of every city they attack. Their intelligence is too precise. It's almost as if someone is guiding them. If they request reinforcements, we should expect at least 2 Tier 6 monsters. Ajif, the scarred warrior, lets out a rough chuckle from his corner. His arms are crossed, his frame filling the torchlight like a mountain. 2 Tier 6? Ha! Let them come. I've been itching for a real fight. Muv, standing opposite him, doesn't share the humor. Her gaze stays on the map, cold and sharp as a drawn blade. Bravado won't hold the walls, Ajif. If their intelligence truly is that refined, then they will not attack blindly. Savon nods gravely. Exactly. They're not just brutes marching in. Every city that's fallen, they knew exactly where to press. Supply depots, hidden stores, even escape tunnels. Someone is feeding them everything. Savon glances at her, then at the Tier SIXS. If 2 monsters of their level arrive, can the 2 of you hold them? Ajif snorts. I'll take them both if you're worried. Muv's eyes narrow, unimpressed. Boasts don't kill enemies. Coordination does. She looks at Valira. What's your plan? Valira straightens, her gaze sweeping across the chamber. The murmur of officers dies at once. We know their march 3 days from now. 400,000 against our 200,000. Her voice is steady, cutting through the tension. They expect fear. They expect us to shrink behind our walls. Her eyes narrow, hard as steel. We will not. We'll greet them with fire and traps, and bleed them before they ever reach our gates. She looks at Savon. How much food and supplies remain in Lafast? Enough for 2 months of siege, Savon replies. If they drag this out longer, we're in trouble. The carriage rocks gently as wheels grind against the dirt road. The low murmur of the marching army outside seeps faintly through the reinforced walls. Thurn sits back, his eyes narrowing as he glances at the map. His voice is a low rumble. The Tier 6 reinforcements will arrive tomorrow. Soren doesn't look up from the papers in her hands, her tone crisp. According to the report, Lefast's reinforcements come from the Ash Edge clan. They bring 100,000 warriors and 2 Tier 6. The words hang heavy in the carriage. Carnessa stiffens, her head snapping toward Soren. Did you say Ash Edge clan? Veltha tilts her serpentine head, forked tongue flicking briefly before she rumbles. Yes, you know of them? The others glance at Carnessa, curious. For a heartbeat, silence presses in. Carnessa remembers Alex's warning. Do not speak of what we did in the Ash Edge clan. Her chest tightens. Nothing, she says finally, her voice quieter than usual. It's just when I was still a slave before His Majesty bought me. An Ash Edge warrior walked past and gave me food. Nasara leans forward, her eyes sharp with interest. A rare kindness from humans. Carnessa forces a small shrug, her gauntlet tightening slightly against her knee. But it was long ago. It means nothing now. Thurn chuckles, shaking his head. Nothing? Even scraps can stick in the heart. Carnessa. But no matter, kindness won't save them when our blades reach their walls. Veltha hisses softly in agreement, coiling his tail tighter. Ash Edge or not, they'll fall like the rest, if they don't surrender. The city of Lefast transforms in a matter of days. Every street, every gate, every stretch of wall bristles with activity. Blacksmiths hammer day and night, sparks flying as new spearheads and arrow tips are forged. Carpenters drag planks, beams, and ropes, fashioning barricades that can be dropped across narrow alleys. The smell of pitch and burning tar fills the air as cauldrons are prepared for the walls. On the northern plain, soldiers work in the heat of the sun, sweating as they dig deep trenches. Wagons filled with sharpened stakes roll in, their contents planted upright until the ground bristles like a forest of wooden fangs. Engineers haul crates of alchemical powder, placing them carefully into hidden pits before covering them with soil. From the ramparts, Valira watches, arms folded, crimson cloak tugged by the wind. Her eyes follow the lines of men and women working, every one of them moving with grim determination. Savon rides up to her, dismounting. His boots crunch against the gravel as he steps beside her. You've whipped the city into a frenzy, he says, voice carrying the faintest edge of admiration. In 3 days, Lefast has become a fortress. Valira doesn't look away from the fields. A fortress alone doesn't win a war. It buys us time. Time to bleed them before they reach the walls. Savon nods, then gestures toward the outer trenches where a group of soldiers struggles with massive logs, sharpening them to points. The men call these wolf teeth. We'll line the plains with them. Any charge will break before it reaches our lines. From below, a soldier wipes sweat from his brow, muttering loud enough for those around him to hear. Never thought I'd be digging holes instead of swinging a sword. His companion grunts as he hauls another stake into place. Swing it soon enough. I'd rather dig now than fight 400,000 all at once. Valira's crimson gaze lingers on the trenches and barricades below. Her cloak snaps in the wind as she speaks, voice low but firm. We need to arm this city to the teeth, Savon. After all, Lefast doesn't have a shield. Savon exhales, the sound heavy, almost weary. He pulls off a gauntlet and rubs his brow before answering. My city can't afford a shield, he admits. His voice carries no shame, only the blunt truth of a ruler who has weighed every coin. Only the crown cities, the vital ones, are granted a shield from the kingdom. Places like Lefast are left with stone and sweat. Back in her room, the noise of the bustling city is muted by thick stone walls. A single lantern burns on the table, casting long shadows over scattered maps and half-drained cups of wine. Salvin leans back in his chair, tapping the edge of the map with a finger. His voice breaks the silence. "Oh, I almost forgot. A report just came in. The Watervale clan was defeated in a single day. Their leader is dead. The rest surrendered to monsters." Gresrin jerks upright, eyes wide. "What? They surrendered to monsters just to survive?" Valira frowns, her arms crossing. The Watervale leader wasn't weak. For them to fall in a day, the monsters are really that strong. Salvin shrugs, though his tone is grim. "It might be, but doesn't it strike you as strange? Remember, after that incident, when 2 of the Empire spears were killed, the Empire immediately ordered all affiliated forces to launch all-out attacks. But now, not a single banner, not a single reinforcement from them." Gresrin shakes his head, frustration flashing in his eyes. "So the Empire pushes everyone else to bleed and burn. But when the monsters rise like this, they stay quiet? Why?" Salvin exhales through his nose, pushing back from the table. "Okay, let's just not talk about this anymore. Answers won't come tonight. What matters is tomorrow." Gresrin rubs the back of his neck, staring at the flickering lantern. "Yeah, tomorrow will be a hard battle." Valira looks at the 2 of them, her crimson eyes steady. "Then rest while you can. At dawn, the walls must be manned. No excuses." The 3 fall into silence, the weight of her words pressing like a stone on their chests. The next day, Lefast stands ready. From the ramparts, the view stretches across the wide plains. Trenches bristle with sharpened stakes. Wooden barricades form jagged lines, and smoke drifts from cauldrons of boiling pitch set behind the walls. Then, from the horizon, a sound rises. A low, rolling thunder, like a storm that doesn't break. Drums. And then they appear. 400,000 monsters crest the far hills, their endless ranks spilling into the plains. Armored beasts with jagged tusks. Wolf-headed warriors howling in unison. Serpentine figures slithering between lines of hulking ogres. The earth itself seems to groan under their march. A nervous ripple moves through the human ranks. A young soldier at the wall licks his lips, voice trembling. "Gods above! There's too many of them." Another grips his spear tighter, sweat running down his temple despite the chill of the morning. 400,000 will be swallowed whole. Valira steps forward along the battlements, her crimson cloak snapping in the wind. She raises her voice so all nearby hear. "Fear doesn't matter. Steel does. Hold the lines. Remember your families behind these walls. Remember that every stake, every trench, every arrow is our shield." Savon, beside her, lifts his sword and points it toward the endless tide of monsters. His voice rings clear, sharp as steel. "Lefast does not kneel. If they want this city, they will choke on its gates." A roar erupts from the men and women on the walls, shaky at first, then swelling, fierce, defiant. The monstrous ranks part. From within their mass, a figure rises, hovering, robes whipping in the wind as if the air itself bends to her command. Sorin. Her voice, amplified by mana, carries across the plains like rolling thunder. "Humans of Lefast, hear me. We will grant you a chance to live. Lay down your arms, surrender, and bow before my king. Defiance will bring only fire, blood, and your children devoured in the ruins." The human ranks stir uneasily, whispers rippling. Some pale, some grit their teeth. Then, green light flares. Valira rises from the battlements, hovering beside Savon as her cloak unfurls like a banner of war. Her voice slices through the silence, hard as steel. "Save the chit-chat. Lefast will never kneel. We do not bow to monsters." The declaration crashes over the walls, sparking a roar from the soldiers. Spears rattle against shields, a clamor of defiance. Far behind the monster lines, hidden among the monsters, Carnessa watches. Her eyes follow Valira, hovering proud above the city. Her chest tightens. A whisper escapes her lips, unheard by all. "Valira, you really came, and leading your clan members too." She lowers her gaze, shame flickering across her features. even though His Majesty has cast the ash edge aside. For a heartbeat, her hands tremble, but she forces herself still, tucking deeper into the shadows so Valira won't notice her presence. Still, I feel bad letting you die here, she admits softly, voice breaking just slightly. Yet she does not move, does not raise a hand. Her jaw clenches, eyes narrowing as she looks back toward the endless tide of monsters. But pity doesn't change orders, and I will not betray His Majesty's will. So she hides, silent, unseen, while two women on opposite sides of war glare at each other across the no-man's land. The monster army halts. The front lines shift, shields slamming into the dirt, rows upon rows locking into place like an iron wall. Behind them, massive shapes roll forward, siege weapons, blackened steel frames glowing faintly with the power of mana stones. Soren lowers her hand. Her eyes flick toward her companions. What are the results of the investigation? She asks. Thurn's many eyes gleam coldly. We can't attack anywhere. It's full of traps, trenches, pits, wards. Every flank have traps. Nasara's laughter is sharp, cruel. Then we smash through the front. My units will lead. She gestures to the hulking shield-bearers behind her, each larger than a house, their armored hides glowing faintly with earth-imbued runes. No trench or wall will stop us. Veltha's coils tighten, voice low and certain. This ground reeks of ambush. Even here, they bury their little tricks. Nasara throws her head back and laughs, her sword limbs glinting in the sun. Let them try. My units will crush their toys into dust. Soren doesn't waste another word. She raises her hand. Then so be it. Ready the siege weapons. Begin. The order ripples through the horde. A roar erupts as monstrous engineers feed mana stones into the colossal weapons. Crystals flare to life. Fiery reds, icy blues, crackling yellows. With a thunderous boom, the first volley launches. Streaks of flame and spears of ice arc high into the sky before slamming into Lefast's walls. Stone shatters. Dust billows. Soldiers stagger as the ground trembles beneath them. Shields! Shields up! Commanders cry. From the battlements, ranks of mages raise glowing wards, their voices straining in unison. The shields aren't true fortifications, but they're the only hope of slowing the bombardments. The air crackles as translucent domes shimmer into place, catching detonations that bloom like miniature suns overhead. Even so, burning fragments rain down, hammering the defenders and shattering stone along the walls. Valira's crimson eyes narrow. Her voice cuts through the chaos. Archers! Release! Tens of thousands of arrows darken the sky, each one glowing faintly with fire, wind, or poison. They descend like a storm upon the front lines of monsters. Nasara strides forward, her shield units roaring in unison. Earth mana surges, and walls of stone rise before them. Arrows shatter uselessly against the bulwarks. Her laughter echoes. Is that all? Pathetic. The front lines shake as Nasara's massive shield-bearers march forward, their stone bulwarks grinding up from the soil with every step. Arrows and bolts of mana slam into the raised walls, sparking and snapping, but they hold. Behind them, monstrous infantry howl and press forward, emboldened by the cover. Nasara thrusts out one of her jagged blade limbs, her voice booming over the battlefield. Push! Grind their little pits into dust. At once, her units channel their earth mana deeper, hardening the soft earth until it becomes solid stone. The trenches and shallow pits dug by Lefast's soldiers lose their bite. Collapsing edges become flat ground, spikes dulled as if swallowed by stone itself. The clever ambushes are neutralized in moments. A soldier on the wall gasps, his knuckles white around his spear. They've ruined the pits. All that work, wasted. But Valira doesn't flinch. Her crimson cloak snaps in the smoky wind as she watches, calm, steady. Savon glances at her. Valira, our first traps are gone. What now? Her lips curl, faint and sharp. That was never the real trap. She raises her hand. Her voice cuts through the thunder of battle. Wait until they advance further. Just a little more. The hulking shield-bearers march on, their claws crushing broken stakes, their stone-hard ground nullifying the pits meant to swallow them. Behind them, ogres and scaled warriors surge with a roar, closing toward the outer barricades. Valeira's eyes flash. Now! She slams her palm down toward the plain. Activate the trap. On the ramparts, the mages who had stood waiting draw talismans from their belts. They press them to the ground, mana flaring. In an instant, sigils hidden beneath the soil blaze to life. The soldiers of Lefast know you shouldn't be able to place active spells in the ground, not without unstable collapse. But the talismans from Ashedge clan had frozen those spells, storing them in waiting like coiled serpents. All it took was the signal. The ground explodes with light. A thunderous crack tears the air as runic circles erupt beneath the monster vanguard. Frost bursts outward in jagged sheets, followed by spirals of flame detonating from beneath. The shield-bearers roar in shock as their stone walls crumble, shattered from below. Ice lances rip upward, skewering scaled beasts. Fire pillars burst like volcanoes, consuming whole ranks in crimson light. The shockwave knocks even ogres sprawling. Screams fill the field, monster voices guttural and high, a chorus of rage and pain. A young archer on the wall stares wide-eyed. By the gods! It worked. They're burning there. Valeira doesn't smile. Her gaze is cold, calculating. Don't be fooled. This is only the opening act. The smoke clears. Charred bodies litter the churned earth. Frozen husks crackle and collapse. But compared to the endless tide behind them, it is a wound, not a killing blow. Perhaps 100, perhaps more, snuffed out in seconds. But in the face of 400,000, it is nothing. Nasara's laughter rings, though sharper now, edged with fury. Clever little rats. You think this will stop me? Her blade limbs snap outward, her shield-bearers rallying to her cry. More monsters press forward, stepping over their fallen without hesitation. On the walls, the soldiers' cheers falter, fading into grim silence as the reality sets in. Savon exhales through clenched teeth. 100 gone, but hundreds of thousands remain. The clash rages on through the long hours. By the time the sun begins its slow crawl toward the horizon, the battlefield is a wasteland of smoke and blood. The earth outside Lefast's walls is blackened and torn, bodies scattered in heaps both human and monster. Arrows keep flying, spells keep flashing, but the pace slows. Both sides are weary, their roars and cries dulling beneath the growing weight of exhaustion. From her vantage, Sorin watches with her usual stillness. Her general's cloak flutters faintly in the breeze, her eyes sharp as she studies the walls. Nasara's voice still booms across the field, demanding another push, but Sorin raises a hand. That's enough. Nasara turns toward her sharply, one blade limb twitching. They're faltering. We can break them before night falls. No, we don't need to conquer everything in a day. Sorin cuts her off, voice calm but edged with authority that leaves no room for protest. Our soldiers are already exhausted. The sun is setting. Pushing further now wins us nothing but more corpses on the field. Veltha coils beside her. Do we just let them breathe? After all this? Sorin glances at her briefly, then back toward the burning walls of Lefast. Let them. Their breaths will only taste of ash by tomorrow. Thurn clicks her mandibles in amusement, her dark form silhouetted against the dimming light. I agree with her. Night favors us, yes, but it also hides their tricks. Better to strike when the dawn strips them bare again. Nasara growls low, but when Sorin's eyes meet hers, she finally lowers her blades. Sorin lifts her hand again, her voice carrying across the battlefield like iron on water. Pull back. Form camps. We take the city tomorrow. The order spreads like wildfire through the monster ranks. Drums thunder, guttural horns echo. Slowly, the tide of beasts and soldiers begins to peel away from the walls, dragging the wounded and leaving behind the fallen. On the walls, the defenders watch in disbelief. A soldier slumps against the battlement, sweat streaking his face. They're pulling back? Gods, they're actually pulling back. Don't relax, Valira warns sharply. She stands tall, her cloak heavy with soot and dust. They're not done. They're simply patient. Savon leans on his spear, chest heaving. Then tonight, at least, we breathe. The defender's relief is quiet, fragile, like a candle in the wind. They don't cheer. Not when the plains below are still covered in corpses. Not when the enemy only retreats to strike again. Outside the city, magic torches spring up one by one, lining the monster encampments like a second horizon. Massive tents rise, fires crackle, and drums echo into the night. From the walls, Lefast's people stare at the ocean of lights. One archer whispers, voice trembling, "It looks like the stars fell to earth." Valira stands on the battlements, her hands resting lightly on the stone as she watches the sea of torches flicker across the plains. The enemy camp sprawls like a living wound. Fires, shadows, and the endless murmur of monsters settling in for the night. Her crimson cloak flutters in the cooling breeze, eyes sharp, unblinking. "They're just testing what we're capable of," she says quietly, her voice carrying more weight than volume. Ajif steps up beside her, his axe strapped across his back. His scarred face is lit in orange from the enemy fires, and his expression is grim. They're testing the walls, the traps, the tempo of our defense. And the 2 Tier 6. He pauses, glancing toward the horizon where the pressure still lingers, heavy as a storm. They didn't even come out, but their presence. I can feel it in my bones. Muv adjusts her hair, the plumes on it trailing in the night wind. Her eyes narrow as she studies the sprawling camp. Tomorrow they'll stop playing. They'll come in force, serious about breaking through. Valira nods once, her gaze never leaving the horizon. Which means tonight is the last breath we'll get before the storm. Ajif huffs through his nose, folding his arms. Then we sharpen the blades, tend the wounded, and pray the walls hold another day. The 3 stand in silence for a moment, the glow of the monster camp stretching endlessly across the plains. Inside the monster encampment, the largest tent glows with the firelight of braziers. The air is thick with the mingled scents of iron, smoke, and beast. Maps are spread across a low obsidian table, marked with crude sigils of Lefast's walls and surrounding terrain. Soren sits at the head, her presence commanding even without raising her voice. Her crimson eyes sweep across the others before she speaks. "Tomorrow," she says evenly, "we will conquer that city no matter what." Nasara, leaning against a pillar, her folded blade limbs twitching restlessly, lets out a sharp laugh. "Now that I think about it, had we pressed harder earlier, we might have broken their outer wall already. They would have been forced to retreat behind the inner defenses." Her tone drips with frustration. Thurn, seated cross-legged in the shadows, tilts her arachnid head. "Perhaps. But had we done so, we would have bled needlessly. The humans are clever with their little traps. Even now, some of our units lie charred or frozen." Veltha coils herself in the far corner, her scales shimmering faintly in the firelight. Her golden eyes narrow. Soren made the right call. The first day was always about measuring their strength. Tomorrow we strike without mercy. The defenders won't survive a second storm. Nasara scoffs, her laughter cutting through the heavy air. "Mercy was never in my plans." Soren leans forward, her voice low but firm. "Nor in mine. Still, we will not waste our soldiers on reckless charges. Every trap they set today will be burned away tomorrow. Their talismans are finite. Their stamina is finite. But ours." She gestures to the camp outside, the endless fires, the endless shadows of the horde. "Ours will not break." Thurn chuckles darkly, her many eyes glinting. "And when their tricks are spent, their walls will be nothing but stone waiting to fall." Veltha hisses softly, tail swaying behind her. "Then it is decided. At dawn we break them, and this city becomes ours." Soren rises, her cloak brushing the floor, her gaze cold and unwavering. "Good. Rest well, then. The next day comes too soon. The sky is still pale gray when the first horns of the monster camp blare across the plains, deep and thunderous. The sound rolls over Lafast's walls like a tide of doom. From the ramparts, bleary-eyed soldiers grip their weapons tighter. Some are still bandaged, others still reeking of smoke from yesterday's fires, but every man and woman drags themselves into position. Already? One whispers, knuckles white on his bow. Valira stands above them, cloak pulled tight against the cold dawn wind. Her face is calm, but her eyes burn with sleepless fire. Stand ready. They're coming. And then, the monster horde moves. Nosara is at the very front, her laughter cutting through the morning mist like steel. But today her stride carries an edge of command. In her hands, no, around her, glows an object of power. A crystalline core throbs against her chest, and from it unfurls a translucent barrier of shifting mana, wrapping her and her vanguard like a dome of liquid light. The shield hums, its edges rippling like water yet radiating a pressure that makes the defender's teeth ache. It's holding the mana of hundreds. A mage mutters in shock. What artifact is that? Savon snarls, slamming his spear against the battlement. Doesn't matter. Look at them. And indeed, the monsters march unflinching. Arrows rain down, sizzling against the barrier like sparks against glass. Fireballs and lightning bolts crash. Yet the mana shield only shudders, dispersing each blow as though the attacks were nothing but ripples in a pond. Nosara throws her arms wide, her bladed limbs flashing in the dawn light. "Humans!" she cries, her voice carrying even through the roar of the battlefield. "Your tricks burn, your traps freeze, but today, nothing will stop us. Watch as your walls shatter under our storm." The shield-bearers slam their claws into the ground, roaring in unison, their voices joining Nosara's. Behind them, ogres pound their clubs against their chests, drumming a rhythm of war. The barrier surges forward as the vanguard charges, an unstoppable wave of steel and flesh wrapped in shimmering mana. Arrows break, spells dissolve. When the first line of Lafast's magic ballista bolts thunders down, the mana shield absorbs the impact with a pulse of blinding light and keeps moving. The walls tremble as the monster front smashes into the outer barricades. Wood shatters, flames erupt, and within moments the forward defenses are crushed under the weight of the advancing horde. Ajif spits, gripping his axe. "If that shield doesn't fall, they'll walk right up to our gates like it's nothing." Ajif doesn't wait for orders. He yanks his war axe free, the blade already wreathed in a surge of crackling flame. With one great leap, the veteran launches himself skyward, his broad shoulders cutting a silhouette against the dawn light. Enough waiting. If that shield stands, the walls will fall. "Muv, come." Muv is already rising, her staff glowing as the winds coil around her like living serpents. Her hair whips in the gale as she answers, voice sharp, steady. "I'll cover you. Let's tear their advance apart." The two Tier 6 rise high above the battlefield, flames and wind twining in their wake like banners of war. For a heartbeat, the soldiers below look up, hope flickering in their tired eyes. But the enemy is ready. Two figures rise from the monster camp like shadows breaking free from the earth itself. Their pressure floods the sky, heavier than iron, heavier than storm clouds. One is a hulking beast with scaled skin black as coal, his four arms gripping jagged cleavers that gleam with venomous light. His wings beat once, sending out a shockwave of foul air. The other is a lithe, pale woman monster with hair like coiling smoke and 6 bone-white spears floating at her back. Her eyes burn like cold stars as her voice drips with contempt. "You think you'll cut down General Nosara's vanguard with that pitiful display?" Ajif snarls, fire erupting along the edge of his axe. "You bastards won't reach those gates. Not while I draw breath." The beast roars back, his voice booming across the battlefield. "Then die screaming." The sky itself becomes a battlefield. Ajif slams his axe downward, a wave of fire tearing through the air toward the scaled monster. The beast crosses his cleavers, absorbing the blow, but flames burst against his hide, leaving seared cracks along his armor-like flesh. At the same instant, Muv spreads her hands wide. Her staff glows, and from the air above Lafast a storm begins to howl. Blades of wind form into spears, whistling down toward the pale woman. But the spears meet their match. The bone-white lances around the woman flare, intercepting each strike with blinding precision. Shards of wind explode in bursts across the sky, scattering harmlessly into the distance. Fast. The pale woman murmurs with the faintest smile. But I'm faster. Her spears whirl forward, streaking toward Muv. The wind mage twists her staff, summoning a cyclone in the nick of time. The first spear pierces the gale, but the second ricochets, the third shatters, the fourth tears through and grazes Muv's shoulder. Blood splatters the sky. Muv! Ajif bellows, trying to turn toward her. But the beast intercepts, roaring as he lunges. His four cleavers descend in a brutal arc. Ajif meets them with his axe, flame and steel colliding in a clash that rattles the heavens. Fight me, fire bastard! The monster snarls. Let the woman die alone. Below, the defenders on the walls watch with their breath caught in their throats as the four Tier 6 clash high above the battlefield, their power shaking the dawn sky. Ajif's flames carve through the clouds. Muv's winds tear open the air itself. The two monster elites strike back with venom and bone, each blow strong enough to crush battlements. Steel screeches. Fire roars. Wind screams. The sky itself seems to rip apart. On the ground, the true disaster begins. The monsters finally reach the gate. Their shield wall slams forward like a living battering ram, and behind it, Nasara advances with her 8 legs clicking against the stone. Her chiton gleams with a metallic sheen, ore-fed and hardened, each joint reflecting the dawn light like polished steel. In one hand she bears a broad, jagged shield of blackened metal. In her other limbs she carries the foldable weapons grown from her body. Curved, segmented blades that unfold with a sickening insectal sound. Above her, soldiers rain arrows and oil, but it is useless. Shoot her. Focus fire. A captain screams from the rampart. Hundreds of shafts plunge down. Spells crackle against her, but the crystalline barrier from earlier still pulses, shielding the vanguard. Each attack fizzles out, leaving only sparks against the translucent dome. Nasara laughs, the sound sharp as broken glass. You cling to your walls like ants to a nest. I'll show you how I break your nest. Her eyes flare, and mana courses through her body, rippling out in waves. The ground at her feet glows crimson as her veins of Oreborn power ignite. Tier 5 skill, Orebreaker Ruin. Her foldable limbs unfold to full length, anchoring into the ground. From her core, streams of molten mana surge, flowing into the weapons. The air thickens, shimmering with heat, the stone groaning as if in fear. Then, she slams them forward. The strike lands square on the gate. A shockwave ripples outward, a metallic roar splitting the air. The wooden and iron-bound doors shudder, glowing red as the ore-forged energy seeps through their very fibers. Hold it! Brace it! Soldiers scream from behind, piling beams and shields to reinforce the gate. But it is useless. The metal moans, warps, and then shatters. The great gates of Lafast explode outward in a storm of iron shards and burning splinters. Soldiers are hurled back screaming, their armor crushed or seared by fragments. Gates down. They've breached. The roar of monsters answers like thunder. Climbers surge up the walls, their claws tearing into stone as easily as a knife through clay. Some scuttle like spiders, dragging shrieking defenders off the battlements. Others leap high, sinking teeth into throats, dragging men down into the mass of the horde. Nasara steps through the ruined gate with her shield raised, her body weapon limbs flexing, glinting. She cuts down the first desperate soldier who rushes her, her blade slicing clean through steel and flesh. Another swings a halberd at her flank. She pivots, her shield smashing him aside like a rag doll. Pathetic. The faint rustle of parchment fills the chamber. Alex sits behind his wide obsidian desk, reports stacked neatly in front of him, though half of them already bear his handwriting. A faint glow from enchanted lanterns washes the room in steady light, pushing back the shadows of dawn. He leans back in his chair, the latest report still open in his hand. His gaze lingers on the words, but his thoughts drift beyond the ink. 5 already, he murmurs to himself. 5 out of 20. The parchment trembles faintly between his fingers before he sets it down. His eyes narrow. And yet, silence from the Empire. Drea, standing nearby with her hands clasped, tilts her head slightly but doesn't interrupt. She knows this tone. Her master is not speaking to her, but to the heir, to himself. Alex drums his fingers against the desk. I don't really know what that emperor is thinking, he mutters. Either he has some grand plan, or he truly believes he can crush my forces without calling on his affiliates. He exhales, a sound that's more a growl than a sigh. Confidence or arrogance? I'll find out soon enough. The silence lingers a moment longer before Drea speaks, her voice softer this time. My lord, any news about Lady Ruva? Alex lifts his eyes from the desk, one brow arching. Ruva. He flips the parchment he had just set down, recalling the details. In the report, Gander specifically mentioned her. He put that girl in charge of a detachment, soldiers to secure small towns. He leans back, tapping the parchment with his finger. Those towns barely have a tier for human as their strongest. Hardly a challenge for her. A faint smile pulls at his lips. Why? Do you miss her already? Drea doesn't flinch under his gaze. Instead, she allows herself a small smile, gentle and fond. Yes, my lord. The palace feels very quiet now, without her running around the halls, begging the kitchen for sweets and cakes. Alex lets out a low chuckle, shaking his head. That girl would trade an entire chest full of gold for a tray of candied fruit. Drea's smile lingers, and yet, she brightens the palace more than any lantern ever could. Alex folds his arms, his expression softening just slightly. She'll be fine. Gander knows better than to waste her talent, or her recklessness, on anything dangerous. Alex leans back in his chair, the brief smile fading as his eyes return to the pile of work on his desk. He glances at Drea, who still stands patiently by his side. You should go now, he says, his tone quiet but firm. You still have other things to do. Drea bows gracefully, hands clasped before her. Of course, my lord. Just call me if you need anything. She turns and walks toward the door, her steps soft against the marble floor. The chamber door closes behind her with a muted thud, leaving Alex alone in the vast working chamber. Silence settles again. Alex exhales slowly, then raises a hand. With a faint shimmer of mana, a transparent screen emerges in front of him, glowing faintly in the air. Alex, level 600. Population, 75,458,890. Need to level up, 500 million. Gold coins, 43,526,726. Eravaris Kingdom. Capital City, Noctaris City. Cities, 50. Soldiers, 3,456,866. Alex studies the numbers, his gaze lingering on the population count. He drums his fingers against the arm of his chair. 75 million, he mutters. Not even close to how much I need. Alex's words hang in the quiet chamber when suddenly the air stirs. From the corner of the room, the shadows ripple unnaturally, and a figure steps forth, kneeling low before his desk. Your Majesty, the shadow says, voice calm and measured. A report from Sir Gander. Alex gestures with 2 fingers, and a sealed parchment slips into his hand as the shadow fades back into the darkness, vanishing without a trace. Alex gestures with 2 fingers, and a sealed parchment slips into his hand as the shadow fades back into the darkness, vanishing without a trace. He breaks the seal and scans the contents. His eyes narrow. So, the Ashedge clan, he mutters. He leans back in his chair, tapping the parchment against his palm. They're next. For a moment, silence stretches, broken only by the steady hum of the enchanted lanterns. Then Alex exhales through his nose, almost like a scoff. The parchment rests on the desk, his fingers lingering over it. His expression hardens, but a faint glimmer of thought lingers in his eyes. I would be lying to myself if I said I feel nothing for that clan. His voice is low, steady. Velcane and his people, I don't dislike them. His hand tightens into a fist on the desk. But if they refuse to bend, Alex's gaze sharpens, cold as steel. Then I will be the first to show them despair. The faint glow of the parchment flickers as if in agreement before he sets it aside. The city of Lafast is burning. Smoke chokes the streets as the monsters surge past the shattered gate, flooding into the avenues like a living tide. Stone walls meant to hold back entire armies now crumble under their claws and steel. The defenders fall back in desperation, forming hasty barricades from overturned wagons and rubble. Arrows whistle from the rooftops, spears jab from alleys, but the lines break with every passing heartbeat. On the inner wall, Ajif's voice cuts through the chaos like thunder. His chest heaves, blood streaming from a jagged wound across his ribs. Each swing of his flaming axe grows heavier, slower. His foe, the scaled beast, grins through his own burns, wounds that seem shallow compared to the carnage written across Ajif's battered form. Beside him, Muv's staff trembles in her grip. Her cloak is shredded, her shoulder bleeding freely, breath ragged as the pale woman presses her with relentless spear after spear. Her winds scream louder, but their edge is blunted, faltering under exhaustion. Ajif spits blood, glaring at Muv. Muv, go! Order the retreat. What? She gasps, her cyclone flickering as another bone spear grazes her cheek. Do it! His roar shakes even the stones. Get the Ash-Edge warriors out of here. Lady Valira, her safety is all that matters now. Muv's heart clenches, but she knows he's right. One more clash, and both of them are corpses in the sky. She nods, teeth gritted. The beast bellows in triumph, lunging after her, but Ajif hurls himself forward, axe igniting in a desperate blaze. Your fights with me, bastard! Steel and fire crash against scaled flesh, locking the two in a clash that shakes the heavens. On the ground, amidst the wreckage of the inner streets, Valira fights like a storm given form. Her bow hums, each arrow wrapped in spiraling wind that tears through monster flesh with merciless precision. Her cloak is torn, her hair disheveled, her hands bleeding from the strain of drawing the Tier 6 weapon again and again. But she stands her ground. She does not falter. And before her, dancing through shadow and wind, is Sorin. Twin daggers glimmer in her hands, one wreathed in dark haze, the other flickering with wind currents sharp enough to cut stone. She darts through arrows like a phantom, her footwork swift, elegant, merciless. Valira looses 3 arrows in a blink. Sorin bends low, the first whistling past her cheek. She twists, the second arrow shattering against her dark-cloaked blade. The third. She catches mid-turn, slamming it aside with a dagger, sparks flying. Quick hands, Sorin says, her voice smooth, cold. But you're aiming at shadows. Valira narrows her eyes, sweat stinging her face. She draws again, the wind gathering sharper around her arrowhead. And you're underestimating me. She releases. The arrow doesn't fly straight. It splits into 4, the winds tearing it apart into a storm of razor fragments. Sorin's smile widens. She raises her daggers, shadows thickening around her like a cloak. Tier 4, dark step. Her form blurs. The fragments rip through where she stood, shredding stone and flesh of unfortunate monsters caught in the crossfire. But Sorin is gone. Valira's eyes widen, then narrow as instinct screams. She spins, twisting her bow into a guard just as Sorin reappears at her flank. Steel screeches against wood and steel, sparks bursting as Sorin's dagger collides with the reinforced bow. The impact sends a shockwave of wind scattering dust and ash around them. Valira grits her teeth, forcing Sorin back with a point-blank burst of wind. I'll not get defeated by a monster like you. Above the blood-soaked streets, The wind shrieks as wings beat against the smoke. Suddenly, Muv dives from the sky, her staff glowing faintly, her other arm gripping Valira around the waist before the young lady can protest. The ground falls away beneath them, the battlefield shrinking into a whirl of chaos below. Retreat! Muv's voice cracks as she shouted, her hair whipping violently in the wind. Ash Edge warriors, fall back! The order ripples like thunder through the battlefield. What remains of the Ash Edge formation begins pulling away, some limping, some dragging wounded kin, others covering the retreat with bloodied blades. Their disciplined withdrawal is nothing short of miraculous amid the collapse. Valira thrashes against Muv's hold, her voice sharp with fury. Muv, what are you doing? Why are we retreating? Put me down this instant. Muv's grip only tightens, her tone harsh, carrying the weight of command. Lady Valira, it's our defeat this time. Look around you. She gestures with a jerk of her head, her eyes narrowing against the smoke. Our warriors are dying fast. Do you want to kill every last one who came here for you? Valira's retort dies in her throat. Her eyes sweep below. The city is gone. Flames climb like serpents from broken houses. The inner walls have crumbled, monsters pouring through like a flood. Her clansmen, her people, are cut down one after another, their courage swallowed by sheer numbers. Her anger falters, her voice small now. This. But then her gaze, frantic and searching, freezes. Amidst the sea of monsters, moving with calm precision, she spots a familiar silhouette. Valira's breath catches. Her bow almost slips from her grip. That face, that aura. Carnessa. Her mind stalls, disbelief crashing through her like ice water. No! Her lips tremble, sound barely escaping. Why is she here? Carnessa, once shy and silent, now moves across the battlefield like a seasoned killer. She cuts down Ash Edge warriors with a face as steady and cold as stone. Valira's thoughts whirl, stumbling, breaking. She was his slave. Alex's, a monster bound to him. She should always be at his side unless... The realization hits her like a blade to the chest. Unless Alex let her go. Or Alex died. Valira's vision blurs, her mind flooding with panic. No, not possible. Not him. Just imagining Alex dead makes her chest tighten. Her body seize, her mind blank. She doesn't even hear Muv's voice calling her name over the wind. Valira's lips move soundlessly as she stares at Carnessa. Impossible. Her heart pounds in her ears, louder than the battlefield, louder than the screams, louder than the fire. Smoke rolls across the ruins of Lefast like a living thing, curling through broken stone and shattered gates. The clash of steel has thinned to scattered cries, the desperate roars of men who refuse to yield. The Ash Edge warriors are gone, pulled back by Muv's command. What remains on the streets are the last soldiers of Lefast, backs pressed against the ruins of their own city. Hold the line! A battered captain shouts, his arm bleeding freely, sword trembling in his grip. For Lefast! For the kingdom! A dozen voices rise with him, ragged but fierce. They form a thin wall of shields and spears, eyes blazing with hopeless defiance. The monsters crash into them like a tide. Claws rake against shields, fangs bite into steel, and spells light up the night. One by one, the defenders fall. A soldier screams as he's dragged down, his blood painting the stones. Another breaks rank, only to be caught by a winged beast that tears him apart midair. Still, they fight. I won't run, one soldier bellows, hacking through a monster's throat before a spear pierces his chest. This is our city. His words cut short in a gurgle as he collapses. The captain staggers, shield splitting in two beneath a monstrous hammer strike. He looks around. The men who stood with him moments ago are either dying, already dead, or thrown to the ground in surrender. Monsters circle the last cluster of defenders. Some soldiers drop their weapons, raising their trembling hands. Others glare with tear-streaked faces, choosing death over shame. Drop your blades. A monstrous voice snarls, reverberating through the street. Those who yield live. Those who resist feed the earth. A few weapons clatter to the ground. Others cling tightly until they're ripped from cold, lifeless fingers. The captain coughs blood, falling to his knees. His sword slips from his hand, clinking against stone. His last words are hoarse but steady. "Forgive me, Lafast." Claws tear through him. Silence follows. The final defenders of Lafast are gone, slain or shackled. Above the burning ruins, a monstrous standard rises. The banner of Erevaris unfurls against the smoke, its colors stark against the flames. Lafast city has fallen. Inside Lafast, the fires still roar, but the screams have dulled into silence. The battle is over. Outside the broken walls, Nasara, Thurn, and Vertha stand like dark sentinels, their voices carrying authority as they direct the monsters. Some pile the corpses into heaps, others drag prisoners into pens, while the rest scour the streets for anything of value. The city is theirs, and their discipline ensures the conquest doesn't descend into chaos. Soren moves apart from them, her cloak brushing ash and blood, as she leads a dozen hulking monsters through the ruined avenues. Their heavy steps make the cracked stone groan, their eyes burning faintly as they follow her every gesture. The city lord's residence looms ahead, half-charred but still standing. Its gate lies torn from its hinges, the courtyard littered with broken guards. Soren wastes no time, striding into the grand hall, down the corridor, and finally into the reinforced chamber beneath the manor, the safe chamber. The heavy doors are already split open. Inside, the air smells of oil, dust, and gold. Piles of coins glimmer in the torchlight, spilling from overturned chests. Weapons and trinkets lie scattered on the shelves, relics and heirlooms of generations past. Soren sweeps her gaze over it all with calm detachment, her eyes narrowing slightly. She raises a hand and gestures to the monsters. "Take all the gold coins," she orders, her voice clipped and commanding. "Carry them back to the main camp. Every chest, every pouch. Don't leave a single coin here." The monsters obey instantly, lumbering forward to gather the treasure. The sound of clinking metal fills the chamber as heavy claws scoop up wealth beyond measure. One of the lesser beasts hesitates, staring at a rack of ornate weapons glittering with enchantments. Soren notices and speaks sharply, cutting the air. "Leave the rest." Sir Gander's orders were clear: gold first. Nothing else matters until it's secured. She walks over to a chest, brushing her gloved fingers through the pile of coins. Her tone drops into something resembling thought, half to herself, half to the monsters. "There's only over 200,000 here," she says flatly. "Not that much, considering the size of this city." Her eyes flick toward the shelves, lingering on a gem-studded crown and a staff wrapped in silver. Some of these items could fetch far more than a chest of coins. A few days later, the carriage rattles along the stone road, its wheels heavy with silence. Inside, Valira sits with her back stiff, hands clenched tightly in her lap. Across from her, Muv rests with her staff propped against her shoulder, her eyes half-lidded but weary, not with sleep, but with the weight of command. Outside, rows upon rows of warriors march beside the carriage. 30,000. Once, 100,000 strong had set out from Ash Edge with banners high and voices proud. Now only a fraction returns, limping, scarred, bandaged, hollow-eyed. Their armor is dented, their clothes torn, many leaning on spears like crutches. The gates of Ironvale creak open, and the city comes alive. People crowd the streets, flags waving, children perched on shoulders, families pressing forward with eager eyes. A cheer rises. They've returned. Victory. The Ash Edge stands strong. The voices boom like thunder, echoing across stone walls. But then, silence begins to spread, slow, uneasy. The cheering falters as the crowd sees their warriors clearly. No proud march, no lifted heads. Just broken men and women moving like shadows. A boy tugs at his mother's dress. "Mama, why are they so quiet?" The woman's smile falters. She sees the bloodstains, the torn banners, the haunted gazes. Her voice breaks. Because they've lost. In the carriage, Valira lifts the curtain, her eyes burning as she sees the faces of her people shift from joy to dread. Cries ripple through the crowd as families search the ranks. Where is my husband? My son? Where is he? Lyra! Lyra, answer me. A woman collapses to her knees, clutching her baby as she wails, the warrior she searched for nowhere in sight. A boy screams his brother's name until his voice cracks. Valira's chest tightens. Her lips tremble. She whispers, almost to herself, "They were waiting for heroes." Her hands ball into fists. "And we brought them ghosts." Mav exhales, her voice low but steady. "This is the truth of war, Lady Valira. Glory lasts a moment. Grief lasts a lifetime." Valira turns sharply to her, pain and anger mingling in her voice. "Then what do I tell them? That their husbands, their sons, their daughters, died for nothing?" Mav meets her eyes, silent for a moment. Then she says, calm but firm, "You tell them their kin fought with courage, that they held the line when no one else would, that without their sacrifice, not even these 30,000 would be alive to come home." Valira swallows hard. Her gaze drifts back to the crowd, where grief spreads like wildfire, swallowing the cheers that once filled the air. The carriage rolls on, and Iron Vale is no longer filled with celebration. Only the sound of weeping. Valira's room is quiet, lit only by the warm glow of a single lantern on her desk. The heavy curtains are drawn, shutting out the night. She sits on the edge of her bed, still dressed in her travel-worn clothes, her armor discarded in the corner. Her hands tremble faintly in her lap as she stares at the floor, replaying the march through Iron Vale over and over again. The door creaks open. Valira, her mother, Sazafa, steps inside. But she is not as Valira remembers. The years of wear and exhaustion have peeled away, replaced by a youthful glow. Her figure is steady, her eyes sharp, her voice carrying the strength of one who has broken through to Tier 5. Her dark hair shimmers like silk, her skin smooth and radiant, and for a moment, Valira almost doesn't recognize her. "I heard what happened," Sazafa says softly, crossing the room. Valira's chest tightens. She lowers her head and whispers, "Mother, I'm a failure." Sazafa sits beside her without hesitation and pulls her into a gentle embrace. "My child," she murmurs, stroking Valira's hair. "Don't blame yourself. What happened was not your fault." Valira's voice cracks. "How can you say that? I led them out, and I brought back only ashes." Sazafa's hand lingers on her daughter's shoulder, steady and warm. "Can I tell you a story?" Valira lets out a hollow laugh, trying to mask her grief. "Are you going to tell me about you and Father's adventures again?" "Mom, I've heard them 100 times. Sazafa chuckles softly, her laughter youthful again, echoing like it once did years ago. "Perhaps, but stories carry truths we forget." Valira turns to look at her, but her mother only smiles, her eyes bright. Then Sazafa tilts her head, a teasing note in her voice. "Or maybe you'd rather tell me about that Alex boy. Did you two find each other again?" At once, Valira's face falls. Her breath catches, and she looks away, her throat tight. The silence in the room grows heavy. "I found Carnessa," Valira finally says, her voice soft, "on the battlefield." Sazafa blinks, surprised. "Oh, his monster slave?" The words hang in the air, and Valira doesn't answer, her expression shadowed. Realization flickers across Sazafa's face. She places a gentle hand on her daughter's cheek. "I'm sure he'll be fine," she says firmly, her tone shifting to reassurance. "You said it yourself before. That boy is powerful." Valira closes her eyes, a tear slipping down her cheek. "I want to believe that." Sazafa draws her into another embrace, holding her tightly as though she could shield her from the weight of the world. "My child," she whispers, "hope is sometimes the only weapon we have left. Don't let it go." The next morning, Ironvale does not wake in peace. The alarm bell tolls, its harsh clangor tearing through the dawn like a blade. Horns join the chorus, low and urgent, reverberating across the walls and towers of the city. Soldiers rush through the streets, dressed in armor, weapons clattering in their hands. Civilians push against each other in panic, children crying as families scramble for safety. Valira jolts awake in her chambers. The sound is unlike the bells of ceremony or drills. This is the sound of invasion. Without hesitation, she throws open her window and leaps into the sky. The cold morning wind bites against her face as she rises, flying toward the city's outer wall. From above, she sees the chaos below. Soldiers forming ranks at the gates, banners flapping, archers rushing to their posts, while Tier 4 and Tier 5 warriors gather like storm clouds on the battlements. On the high walls, she spots her father. Velcane stands tall, his long coat whipping in the wind, a massive blade resting casually against his shoulder. Around him, Muv and 2 other Tier 6 warriors of the Ashedge clan wait with grim expressions. Their presence is heavy enough to make the air seem to thrum. Valira lands beside them, her boots striking stone. "Father!" she calls, her voice strained. "What is happening?" Velcane doesn't turn immediately. His gaze is fixed far beyond the walls, his sharp eyes narrowing at the horizon. Only when Valira steps closer does he speak, his voice low, carrying the weight of steel. "The monsters," he says. "They're moving this way. Ironvale may be their next target after Watervale's fall." Valira looks past them, straining her sight. At first, there is only the pale haze of morning mist. Then, like an ink stain spreading across paper, the horizon darkens. A massive tide of movement, shifting and endless, begins to take form. Her breath catches. That can't be." Velcane lifts his blade, the air shivering faintly around its edge. "It can. 1,000,000 soldiers," he says grimly. "An army of monsters." The others, seasoned Tier 6 warriors hardened by decades of war, say nothing. Their silence speaks louder than any words. Valira grips her fists so tightly her knuckles turn white. 1,000,000 against us? Against this city? Her father finally turns to her, his gaze sharp but calm, steady as stone. "Do not falter, Valira. Fear spreads faster than fire. If you show weakness, the men will see it. And if they see it, Ironvale will fall before the first strike." Valira swallows hard, forcing her trembling legs to still. She nods, her voice firm despite the storm inside her chest. "I understand." Velcane lowers his blade, pointing it toward the seething tide of monsters in the distance. His eyes narrow, a glint of cold recognition in them. "Leading them," he says, his tone sharp, "is still Mazel. His wounds are already healed." Valira stiffens. The name is enough to chill her blood. "Mazel!" Velcane nods once, his gaze never leaving the advancing army. "That's the monster that killed Kore." Valira's breath hitches. Clan leader Kore. She was a very powerful Tier 6. How could? Velcane cuts her off, his voice heavy with restraint. "I did some digging after her death. The reports claim Kore used a forbidden technique, one that pushed her strength beyond the limits. They say she reached Quasi, Tier 7 in that fight." Muv frowns, arms crossed. "Quasi, Tier 7? She shakes her head slowly. "That's nearly impossible. Even the Empire has no such method. If it did exist, they'd have already conquered another continent." Valira's eyes dart between them, confusion and dread mixing in her chest. "Then it's false? She couldn't have risen that high." Velcane exhales through his nose, his tone grim. "More likely, she reached peak Tier 6. That's the limit of what any forbidden art I know can achieve. Enough to burn your life away for a temporary surge. But still." His hand tightens on the hilt of his blade. "Even at her peak, she died by Mazel's hand." One of the other Tier 6 warriors, an older man with scars across his face, mutters under his breath. "If a peak Tier 6 can't even wound him, then what are we standing on this wall for?" Valira turns to him sharply, her voice trembling but firm. Don't say that. If we break before the battle starts, Ironvale is already lost. Velcane glances at her, and though his expression is stern, a flicker of approval passes in his eyes. He lifts his blade again, pointing at the monstrous tide drawing nearer with every heartbeat. Whatever he is, Velcane says, voice like iron, we will meet him here, on these walls. And if these monster thinks Ironvale will fall as easily as Watervale, he is mistaken. The horns blare again, and the sound rolls across the city like thunder. The tide of monsters draws closer, 1 million strong, led by a single figure whose shadow seems to swallow the dawn. The tide of monsters halts. Not a claw scrapes, not a fang gnashes. The sea of creatures, beasts, abominations, armored titans, stand utterly still. From the walls of Ironvale, thousands of human eyes stare in disbelief. Valeira grips the battlement, whispering, Why aren't they charging? Even Velcane narrows his gaze, his jaw tightening. It looks like they're waiting. Muv frowns. Waiting for what? A signal? Then it happens. A murmur ripples through the ranks of monsters, like a silent pulse. Heads tilt upward. The soldiers of Ironvale follow their gaze. At first, only a dark speck hovers in the horizon sky. Then, slowly, impossibly, it grows. The air thrums with an alien hum, deep and resonant, as though the heavens themselves shudder. What in the God's name is that? One soldier gasps, his voice breaking. The speck swells into form, vast, titanic. As the morning mist scatters, the truth reveals itself. A floating vessel, so massive its shadow could engulf the entire city. Its hull glitters faintly with runes, each the size of towers, carved in patterns no mortal kingdom has ever seen. Valeira's breath catches in her throat. Her voice trembles. A flying boat? The warriors on the wall gape in silence. The ash-edged treasured vessel, pride of their clan, is a mere ant compared to this leviathan in the sky. This is no warship. This is an empire unto itself. The older scarred tier Six's lips quiver. That thing could crush cities just by landing. From below, Mazel advances with measured steps, his towering frame gleaming with fresh scars that only sharpen his grandeur. His aura swells, vast and indomitable, pressing upon the battlefield like the weight of the heavens. He raises one clawed hand high, and when he speaks, his voice is deep and resonant, carrying with the gravity of a decree. The king has arrived. At once, the 1 million monsters collapse to their knees. The thunderous sound of their armor and limbs striking the ground echoes like an earthquake. Then comes the roar, unified, deafening. All hail King Alex. The walls of Ironvale tremble under the force of the cry. Dust rains from the stones. Valeira is surprised to hear the name of the king of the monster. Alex? She stares down from the battlements, her breath short and uneven. Alex? The name echoes in her mind, sharp and unbearable. She shakes her head violently, her fingers digging into the stone. No, it can't be him. The Alex I knew is human. The king of these monsters can only be a monster. And yet, her heart betrays her. It beats faster, harder, as though trying to leap from her chest. Velcane's brows knit together, his hand tightening around his sword. This doesn't make sense. Why would their king appear here himself? This city isn't worth the risk. Before anyone can respond, the vessel above groans with a sound like the breaking of mountains. A ripple of light tears open beneath its hull, and from it, a lone figure descends. The humans gasp as one. Alex does not fall. He glides, carried by unseen force, each step upon the air deliberate, regal. His presence dominates the heavens. His body shimmers with scales that gleam like deep space, each one catching the light and scattering it like starlight. Between them, faint rivers of energy flow, as if the night sky itself breathes upon his skin. Yet his face is strikingly human, fair and youthful, marred by nothing but the inhuman perfection that makes the soldiers on the wall forget to breathe. Two horns, curved and majestic, rise from his head like a crown forged by gods. His armor burns with faint radiance, a masterpiece beyond mortal craft, something no human king, no emperor, could ever hope to wear. Even hardened warriors lower their weapons unconsciously. Awe seeps into their bones, strangling fear with reverence. One soldier whispers, voice breaking, He looks like a god." Another stammers, That can't be immortal. That's divinity itself." Velcane doesn't speak immediately. His sharp eyes follow Alex as the figure lowers, each movement calm, every inch dripping with authority. His soldiers murmur prayers under their breath, some clutching charms, others weeping silently. Finally, Velcane exhales through his teeth. This isn't normal. Kings don't walk to the front lines, especially not kings who command a million monsters. Why here? Why now? But no answer comes, because at that moment, Alex's feet touch the ground, and all of Ironvale goes silent. The earth itself seems to bow when Alex lands, his aura rippling across the battlefield like a silent storm. Even the walls of Ironvale groan under the pressure of his presence. Alex lifts his head, his voice calm yet carrying across the plains as though the world itself amplifies it. "Long time no see, Ashedge clan." Confusion erupts at once. Murmurs sweep through both humans and monsters. "Long time no see?" The words clang strangely in every ear. Velcane doesn't hesitate. He shoots upward, halting in the air still dozens of meters away from Alex. His expression is tight, his tone respectful but edged with disbelief. "What do you mean by long time no see? May I know if His Majesty has a past with my clan?" Even in the presence of an enemy, Velcane's voice holds reverence, compelled by something deeper than fear. Alex chuckles softly, not mocking, but as if meeting an old friend. His eyes gleam faintly as he lifts his hand. "Velcane, good to see you again." Before another word is spoken, his hand brushes across the air. Light ripples, and in the next breath, his monster form is gone. In its place stands a young man, human in appearance, his black hair catching the sun, his face unmistakable to those who knew him. Gasps tear through the Ashedge warriors. Shock spreads like fire. Valira's hand flies to her mouth, her knees weak, her eyes widen until they sting. That face. The same face she once fought side by side. The same human who lifted her clan from the brink of ruin. The boy she had sworn never to forget. Velcane's body stiffens in midair, his voice low, nearly trembling. "Are you truly that boy Alex who helped my clan rise to rank 5? Alex meets his gaze without hesitation. "Yes, Zanson is living a good life in my kingdom." The name strikes like a thunderclap. Velcane's eyes flare, his doubt crumbling. Only the real Alex would know that name, Zanson. Velcane exhales sharply, his shoulders loosening though his eyes remain cautious. "You didn't force Zanson to serve you, did you? You didn't scare him into submission?" Alex laughs lightly, genuine amusement in his voice. "Haha, I'm not that desperate. No, I gave him knowledge to climb higher than he ever dreamed. He chose to work for me. And if you want," his tone deepens, heavy with promise, "I can do the same for you." The Ashedge warriors shift uneasily. The humans on the wall stare in frozen silence, unable to process what they are hearing. Then Alex spreads his arms, his presence flaring again like an eclipse swallowing the sun. "The reason I came personally is simple. Because of what happened in my adventure here, I decided to give your clan a place. I will give you and the Ashedge the chance to be part of my kingdom." The silence is suffocating. Velcane's chest rises and falls slowly, his fists tightening, his wings trembling faintly. Finally, he lowers his gaze, voice steady but low. "That is no small choice. I will return with an answer." The tension hangs like a drawn blade, every warrior holding their breath, as Velcane stares at the man who is both savior and enemy. Valira can no longer hold back. She rushes to her father's side the moment he lands back on the wall, her eyes locked on the figure standing on the battlefield. "Father, is that really him?" Is that truly Alex? Velcane keeps his gaze forward, his jaw set hard. His voice is low, steady, but heavy with meaning. It is. He knows Zanson. And you know, only the three of us ever knew who Zanson was. Valira's lips part, but no sound escapes. Her chest tightens painfully as her eyes fall once more on Alex, who now stands in his reverted monster form, towering and terrible, yet still bearing the traces of the boy she once knew. Her throat burns with questions. Why? Why hide? Why become this? Why do you want to destroy us? But her voice falters. No words come. Alex's gaze sweeps the walls, his expression unreadable. His eyes linger on Valira for only a heartbeat. Yet in that fleeting moment, her world tilts. It is the same gaze she remembered. Calm, unshaken, piercing. Velcane's silence weighs heavy over the battlements. The warriors of the Ashedge clan stand stiff, their eyes darting between the colossal flying vessel above and the lone figure below who radiates an aura no mortal should possess. The air itself seems tighter, harder to breathe. The younger warriors shift restlessly, gripping weapons that suddenly feel too small in their hands. Finally, Velcane exhales, slow and deliberate. His voice cuts through the tense air. I have a plan. Every eye snaps to him. He straightens his back, broad shoulders squaring. His tone is calm, but beneath it is a thread of steel. I know most of you want to fight, and I know the rest of you cannot stomach the thought of submitting to monsters. I am no different. I intended to fight to the very end. A murmur ripples among the warriors, their hearts stirring at the words, but it dies quickly when Velcane's gaze shifts upward to the sky. His eyes harden as he gestures at the shadow that blots the heavens. But after seeing that, and after realizing who stands at its heart, he shakes his head. It is no longer so simple. The silence grows heavier. No one dares interrupt him. Velcane's jaw tightens, but his voice carries steady. Do not forget, it was the same man who helped our clan rise when we were still struggling at the bottom. The same person who gave me the Etherheart fruit. The same person who saved my wife. The words strike deep. The warriors stiffen, their arguments dying in their throats. Valira's eyes widen as she stares at her father. Muv folds her arms, expression tense but unreadable. Velcane's voice drops lower, steadier. I will offer him a duel, one-on-one. If I win, he will leave our clan alone. If I lose and fall. He pauses, his eyes narrowing, his voice sharp as a blade. Then promise me this. Promise me you will submit. Do not let the Ashedge be erased. Father! Valira bursts out, stepping forward, her voice breaking. What are you saying? You can't seriously think you can defeat him. Her eyes shine with a mix of anger and fear. She clutches her chest, her voice trembling. I don't want to lose you, not like this. Velcane does not look at her. His eyes stay fixed on Alex in the distance, the weight of his resolve pressing down on everyone around him. Muv finally speaks, her voice lower, steadier, but no less tense. Are you sure about this, Velcane? You felt it earlier, didn't you? That aura of his. It's not something any of us below peak tier 6 can even contend with. Her words cut like truth, plain and cold. Velcane finally looks at her, and though his expression is calm, his eyes burn with something deeper. I know. His tone is grave, but unwavering. But I cannot let my clan bow without trying. Velcane soars back into the air, closing the distance between himself and Alex. The air trembles as he got closer, his presence pressing against the silence like a storm trying to break free. He stops only a few meters before Alex, their gazes locking, two rulers standing on the knife's edge of decision. I can't really submit to you without trying, Velcane says, voice low but carrying. So I challenge you to a duel. If I win, you will leave my clan alone. But if you win, I promise you, the Ashedge will submit. A hush spreads over the battlefield. Even the monsters behind Alex grow still, their snarls dying away as if they, too, are waiting. Alex lets out a long breath. Why? Why not just submit? I can help you climb higher. I can help you reach tier 7. Is it about pride? Or do you simply hate monsters too much to kneel to me? Velcane chuckles softly. Hate monsters? No. If anything, monsters should hate us. We've enslaved them for gods know how long, broke them, chained them, forced them. You've seen it yourself, haven't you? His smile fades into something grim, resolute. As for pride, perhaps. But I do not want to be the leader remembered for bowing to monsters. My daughter. She can lead them better than me when the time comes. Alex shakes his head, a sigh escaping him. His aura dims slightly, as though disappointed but not surprised. So that's it. Then fine. I'll accept. He lifts his hand, calm and deliberate. I'll give you 3 moves first. As long as you injure me, even a scratch, you win. After that, I will only attack once. If you can withstand it, you win. Does that sound fair? Velcane's brows shoot up, the offer catching him off guard. You must be so confident in your strength. Alex's lips curve faintly, his eyes half-lidded but steady as mountains. It's not confidence, it's reality. Velcane's jaw tightens, fire sparking in his chest. He grips the hilt of his sword, its blade humming with power, and his aura swells until the very air ripples around him. Then I'll show you what the Ashedge leader is made of. Alex only spreads his arms slightly, scales catching the light like stars in the night. His tone is calm, almost patient. Come, Velcane, make your 3 moves count. The 2 figures rise higher, wings cutting through the air with effortless strength. Clouds scatter around them, and yet, from below, every warrior and monster can still see them clearly suspended against the canvas of the sky. The wind howls, stirred not by nature, but by power. Velcane levels his blade, its edge gleaming like a shard of dawn. His voice resonates across the battlefield, deep and unwavering. This is my first attack. The sword trembles, then bursts into a storm of light and gale. Runes flare along the steel, feeding into the torrent of energy that gathers at its tip. The air bends, warps, cracks ripple outward, as though the world itself resists what is about to be unleashed. Tier 6 skill, Tempest Sever. He swings. The heavens split. A blade of compressed wind, sharp enough to cleave mountains, tears through the air. It stretches for hundreds of meters, a crescent of annihilation that screams like thunder as it descends upon Alex. The sheer pressure rips the clouds apart, sends shockwaves crashing down on the battlefield, forcing even peak Tier 5 warriors to their knees. The warriors below gape in awe and terror. That strike! It could level a city. One whispers, his voice lost in the storm. Velcane's eyes burn with focus, his sword arm steady, his body blazing with will. The tempest closes the distance in a heartbeat. Unstoppable, absolute. Alex does not move. The storm crashes against him, swallowing his form in blinding light and howling winds. The sky convulses, shattering into rings of energy that ripple outward for miles. The earth below trembles, cracks forming in the distant hills as though struck by an earthquake. For a moment, nothing can be seen. Only a wall of dust, roaring winds, and the aftermath of destruction. Then, the storm clears. Alex stands exactly where he was, arms folded calmly across his chest. Not a single hair is out of place. His cloak flutters gently behind him, untouched by the chaos that had threatened to erase him. Velcane's pupils constrict. His hand tightens around the hilt of his sword. Impossible! Alex's gaze is steady, almost bored, but his words carry down like rolling thunder. 1 strike down, 2 remain. Velcane's chest heaves as the winds he summoned fade into silence. His knuckles whiten around the hilt of his blade, veins pressing against skin. The disbelief in his eyes flickers only for a heartbeat. Then resolve hardens again. He lifts his sword and points it at Alex, the tip trembling not from fear but from the force of power surging through it. My next attack, Velcane says, his voice deep and sharp, will be the strongest Tier 6 skill I can muster. the culmination of everything I've honed in my life as a swordsman of the wind. The air reacts before his blade even moves. A pressure builds, sharp and suffocating, forcing warriors on the battlements to cover their mouths and choke down air that feels like knives in their lungs. The sky above swirls, the clouds twisting into a massive spiral. Lightning arcs within the storm, not of thunder but of pure friction born from wind so sharp it tears the atmosphere apart. Velkhane aura flaring like a hurricane unchained. His sword glows, the runes etched into the steel blazing as though they will melt. Tier 6. Heaven-rending gale. The very heavens scream as his blade carves downward. A cataclysm erupts. From his strike surges a colossal cyclone. A sword-shaped storm hundreds of meters long, layered with countless blades of compressed wind stacked upon one another. Each edge within it is sharp enough to flay the earth, and together they form a storm that could erase a fortress in seconds. The cyclone howls like a dragon of wind, its roar splitting the skies as it descends upon Alex. Every tree, every stone, every loose weapon across the battlefield is ripped into the air, shredded into fragments by the storm's pull. On the ground, the Ash Edge warriors stumble, some forced to their knees, their faces pale. The clan leader, is this strong? One gasps, shielding his face from the tearing winds. But Velkhane's eyes blaze with the resolve of a man who has staked everything. His body strains, veins bulging, blood trickling from his nose and ears as he forces every last drop of his power into the attack. Take this. The world seems to collapse inward as the storm converges, swallowing Alex whole in an explosion that blots out the horizon. The shockwave tears outward, flattening hills, snapping ancient trees, and reducing the battlements to rubble. For long moments, nothing can be seen but devastation. The sky is a yawning wound of whirling gales. Then, the winds fade, the dust settles, and Alex is still there, floating, unmoved. His scales gleam faintly as though the storm had only polished them, his cloak flowing lazily in the aftermath of ruin. Not a single scratch mars his body. Gasps ripple across the Ash Edge ranks. Some drop their weapons outright, their eyes wide with disbelief. Velkhane staggers, sweat pouring down his temples, his breath ragged. His arm trembles from the weight of his own sword. Alex's expression remains calm, his tone unshaken as he speaks, his voice cutting through the silence like thunder. 2 strikes down. 1 remains. Velkhane's grip tightens on his blade. His chest rises and falls heavily, each breath a ragged drag of air. The 2 strongest strikes of his life, his pride as a wind swordsman, had vanished against Alex like pebbles cast into the sea. He lowers his head for a moment, eyes shadowed, then draws in a long breath. His voice comes steady, though it carries the weight of desperation. You don't mind me using external help, right? Alex's gaze doesn't waver. His voice is calm, cool, unshaken. Go ahead. Velkhane's eyes harden, his tone dropping into something deep, reverent, almost ritualistic. This strike is not my own. It is the hidden card of the Ash Edge clan, a gift left by our founder. So, his gaze sharpens, voice like iron. You'd best take this seriously. Alex's lips curve faintly, his eyes narrowing ever so slightly. Let's see about that. Velkhane turns his gaze downward, toward the heart of the Ash Edge compound. His voice booms across the battlefield. Warriors of the Ash Edge clan, lend me your strength. A roar echoes from the walls. One by one, the warriors kneel, pressing their palms to the ground. Energy pours out of them like streams of light, rushing into the core of the fortress. The earth rumbles, stone splits, and from deep within, something ancient awakens. The ground cracks open. Dust and wind spiral upward as a massive sword rises. An ancient relic, its blade weathered yet gleaming with dormant power. The air thrums with violent gales as if the weapon itself breathes the storm. Velkhane extends his hand. The relic responds, breaking free from its resting place and soaring into his grasp. The moment his fingers close around the hilt, the sky howls. The The sword is heavy, not with weight, but with the will of countless generations. Its runes flare, spilling emerald and silver light into the storm above. Velcane grits his teeth as his body strains under its burden. This is the Windbreaker, the legacy of our founder. The relic vibrates, and power begins to gather at its core. Velcane raises the sword high, and winds spiral violently around him, coalescing into a massive formation that stretches across the heavens. Quasi-Tier 7 skill, Eternal Tempest. Velcane's roar shakes the sky as he thrusts the relic upward. The runes flare brighter than lightning, and the air itself revolts. Winds scream into existence from every corner of the battlefield, not as blades this time, but as a world-consuming storm. Clouds are shredded into ribbons, the heavens darken, and the ground rumbles as though the entire domain has been placed under siege. The cyclone takes the shape of a dome, a colossal prison of storm, miles wide, sealing Alex within. Inside, the wind rages endlessly, compressing, folding, tearing, until it becomes something akin to a world of storms, an eternal tempest where nothing survives. Velcane's voice carries above the howl, his tone reverent yet strained. This is no mere skill. This storm was carved from the will of our founder. A tempest without end, swallowing all who stand against the Ash-Edge clan. His warriors cry out, their strength still being siphoned into the relic. Streams of force and aura pour into Velcane, who trembles as his body becomes the conduit for the ancient weapon. His veins glow faintly, his wings thrash, and blood sprays from the corners of his mouth. The storm prison shrinks, condensing on Alex. Inside, gales rage at a speed that could strip flesh from bone, collapse lungs and shatter spirit. Tornadoes rise and collapse in seconds, thunder cracks from friction alone, and the very atmosphere is crushed under its own fury. From the outside, nothing can be seen. Only a whirling sphere of unending wind. Its scream louder than war drums. The warriors roar with him, their voices nearly lost to the hurricane. Then, from inside the storm, a faint glow shines. It grows brighter, brighter, until it cuts through the endless tempest like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. A calm, steady glow. And then the winds stop. The eternal tempest collapses in on itself with a deafening implosion, scattering into harmless breezes that flutter across the ruined battlefield. Floating in the air, at the eye of where the storm once raged, is Alex. Unscathed, cloak unruffled, scales gleaming as though he had been bathed in light, not storms. He tilts his head slightly, his expression unreadable. Then he exhales, a faint curl of disdain escaping his lips. Quasi-Tier 7, yet not a trace of law in it. Impressive in size, but hollow. His eyes pierce through Velcane. All that noise, and not a single scratch. The battlefield falls into stunned silence. The Ash-Edge warriors, pale and trembling, can't even raise their weapons. Some sink to their knees outright. Velcane staggers, the relic heavy in his hands, his strength drained to the bone. Blood stains his chin, his wings sag. His storm had failed. Alex's voice is steady, cold as judgment. 3 strikes. Your turn is over. On the walls of the Ash-Edge stronghold, despair takes root. The warriors stare in silence, their mouths dry, their knees weak. Muv grips the stone parapet until her knuckles pale. Her voice trembles as she mutters, half in disbelief, half in fear. I don't believe it. Is that monster truly Tier 6? There's no way anyone below Tier 7 could take the Eternal Tempest unscathed. Beside her, Valeira clenches her fists until her nails bite into her palms. She steels herself, repeating over and over in her mind what her father once told her. The path of the clan is greater than the life of any one man. But tears betray her resolve, spilling down her cheeks despite the hard set of her jaw. Back in the sky, the storm has ended. Alex floats in the air, his eyes sharp, his aura calm as a still ocean. He looks at Velcane without malice, but with the detached weight of inevitability. I will not hold back, he says, his tone even every word ringing across the battlefield like iron striking stone. And I am sure you are going to die in this attack of mine. Velcain steadies himself on the relic sword, chest heaving, but he still manages to smirk. Bring it on. If you hold back, that's the same as you looking down on me. Alex inclines his head slightly, acknowledging the words. Good. Then, 3 circles flare open behind him, each vast and intricate, their runes glowing with different colors. One burns crimson with the fury of flame. Tier 6 skill, Infernal Cataclysm. The air ignites, and a tidal wave of molten fire surges in miniature suns. The second radiates a glacial blue. Tier 6 skill, Absolute Frostfang. The temperature plummets instantly, and blades of ice as tall as mountains sharpen in the sky, each one humming with killing intent. The third crackles with violet lightning, arcs splitting the heavens. Tier 6 skill, Heavenly Ruin Bolt. Thunderheads churn into being, bolts the size of towers tearing downward with the promise of annihilation. 3 different elements. 3 different Tier 6 skills. Conjured simultaneously. Gasps erupt from the walls. Warriors stumble back as if the sight itself wounds them. Even the oldest elders, who have seen centuries of battles, cannot comprehend what they witness. No, no, that's not possible. One whispers, his voice thin. 3 elements? 3 Tier 6 skills. Another stammers. Mav grips the wall harder, her eyes wide. That just doesn't make sense. In this world, it is sacred knowledge. One masters a single element to refine their path, to ascend without discord. To wield 2 is the mark of a genius, so rare that the greatest powers of the realm would wage war to claim them. But 3? Perhaps in the central continent such legends exist. Yet in this land, not once in all recorded history has a soul been born who could command 3 elements and survive their inevitable clash. And worse, Alex doesn't just wield them. He's about to combine them. Velcain's eyes widen, his breath caught in his throat. The eternal tempest had consumed all of him. Yet before him now is a truth so far beyond his comprehension it shatters the foundations of everything he believes. You, what are you? He rasps. Alex's expression doesn't change. His voice is calm, inevitable and final. Your end. The 3 Tier 6 formations spin, their energies converging. Flame, frost and thunder, clashing elements that should never harmonize, bend to Alex's will. They collide, not in chaos, but in perfect balance, fusing into something greater. The heavens shake, the battlefield quakes, the sky itself groans as though it cannot contain what is being born. And then the world sees it, an attack not meant for mortals, a miracle stitched from impossible laws. Velcain, his clan, even the monster watching, all of them realize in the same breath. This is no longer a fight. This is a revelation. The 3 circles blaze behind Alex, each vast enough to cover the sky. Fire, frost, and lightning, opposites by nature, enemies to one another. Yet here they exist at once, thrumming with raw, unrestrained force. Velcain stares, sweat dripping down his temples. His lips part, words spilling without thought. 3 Tier 6, you're fusing them? No, that's not possible. On the wall, the Ash-Edge warriors stagger. One drops his spear outright. Another grabs his head as if to force sense into what he's seeing. That's suicide, Mav cries. The elements will rip each other apart. But they don't. Alex raises his hand, and the circles shift. Slowly, deliberately, he draws them inward, forcing them to overlap. The very air screams at the act, reality twisting, the sky cracking as if it wants to reject this impossibility. The fire circle pulses, its runes burning brighter. The frost circle lashes out, shards breaking off and dissolving into vapor as it presses against flame. The lightning circle convulses, thunder booming in protest. Velcain's knees nearly buckle. He's combining them? Mav's voice breaks, trembling. That's madness. No one could survive that clash. The overlapping edges of the circles spark violently, elements gnashing at each other like beasts locked in a cage. Fire roars, ice hisses, lightning cracks, each trying to consume the others. For an instant, it looks as if the world itself will detonate. But then, Alex speaks, his voice quiet, commanding, as if he were addressing the very laws of existence. Submit. The runes obey. The chaos stills. The three circles stop fighting, their patterns aligning into a single rhythm, as though they had always been fragments of one greater design waiting to be united. The battlefield shakes violently. A pressure rolls out so heavy the warriors can't even stand. One by one, they fall to their knees, gasping for breath, their bodies instinctively bowing to the weight of a higher order. Velcain stares, horror in his eyes. No one can force harmony between three Tier 6 skills. Alex's expression doesn't change. He closes his fist, and the three circles collapse inward, fusing. A new circle appears, black-rimmed, luminous, its runes alien and unreadable. From its heart, energy begins to condense. Fire spirals into a molten core. Frost coils around it, shaping and binding it. Lightning races across the form, charging it with unbearable power. The shape grows, elongates, until it becomes a colossal spear, humming like the end of the world. Alex lowers his hand. His tone is steady, as if he were announcing simple fact. This is a path none of you will ever reach. A path you cannot even name. Gasps ripple across the walls. The Tier 6 next to Muv, his voice cracks as he stammers. He just threw away everything we know about elements. Muv grips the stone parapet so hard blood drips from her palms. Her eyes widen, fear and awe tangled together. That's not Tier 6 anymore. Velcain can only whisper, barely able to hold the relic sword in his hands. What are you? Alex meets his gaze, eyes cold, resolute. The end. The fused spear thrums, space warping around it, the battlefield waiting to be rewritten by its strike. The fused spear quivers in the air behind Alex, larger than a siege tower, its shaft woven from flame, its edge honed in frost, its body crackling with violet lightning. Every heartbeat it exists, the sky darkens, the earth trembles, and the battlefield feels as though it teeters on the brink of collapse. Velcain's grip on the relic sword tightens until his knuckles bleed. His wings flare, tattered but defiant, and he raises the blade above his head. His voice is hoarse, cracked, but he still roars. If I am to die, then I will die as the leader of Ash Edge. Come, Alex. Alex's eyes narrow. He doesn't speak. He doesn't need to. With a single motion, smooth and inevitable, he hurls the spear. The world breaks. The spear leaves his hand like a star falling from heaven, ripping through the sky with a scream that is neither thunder nor wind but the tearing of reality itself. The air ignites around it. Frost erupts in its wake, and lightning lashes out in jagged veins across the heavens. The impact is instantaneous. Velcain swings the relic sword down to meet it. The eternal tempest flares weakly, a last desperate surge of wind spiraling outward. An explosion of fire that blossoms into a sun, of ice that splinters into glaciers, of lightning that shreds the sky into ribbons. The battlefield is drowned in light. The shockwave rips across the city, pulverizing stone, toppling towers, tearing banners to ash. Warriors are thrown from the walls like leaves before a hurricane, their screams swallowed by the roar. For the briefest instant, spear and storm clash, an eye blink of resistance. Velcain's scream cuts through it, raw and defiant, until it's silenced by the blast. His silhouette burns away in the storm of elements, wings torn to fragments, body consumed in light and lightning. The relic sword shatters into shards of useless steel, its tempest ripped apart like mist in the sun. Velcain vanishes in the brilliance. No body, no bone, not even ash. He is gone before his final scream can leave his throat. The spear doesn't stop at Velcain. The fused spear rages onward. It streaks past the city, tearing through the distant mountain range. And then impact. The world convulses. A sound like the cracking of the heavens itself splits the air. The mountains do not fall. They are unmade, ripped from existence as if erased by the hand of a god. The ground lurches, buckles, and then collapses into a vast wound. When the light clears, the stronghold's defenders can only gape. Before them lies a crater. No, a scar across the world. So vast it dwarfs their city. Its rim glows red with rivers of molten rock, heat rippling into the sky like a furnace. At its center, frost glitters like diamond, an impossible mirror of frozen death locking the heart of the destruction in ice. Lightning crawls endlessly through the ruin, coiling, striking, never fading, as if the spear's fury refuses to die. The mountains are gone. Entire peaks, ridges, forests, all annihilated. Velkhane, leader of the Ashedge clan, is nothing. Not a fragment, not even ash. Silence falls. Muv's hands tremble as she grips the wall. Her voice hoarse, thin, barely human. He erased the mountains. Another warrior stumbles back, face pale, eyes wide with terror. Not even the Quasi-Tier 7 relic could stop it. The silence after the cataclysm lingers, broken only by the crackle of lingering lightning in the ruin beyond the walls. Alex descends slowly, the dust and heat parting around him as though they dare not touch him. His boots strike the stone wall with steady rhythm, until he comes to stand before the battered defenders. Every warrior there shrinks back under his gaze. Their weapons feel like twigs, their courage like smoke. None dare speak. Alex turns his eyes, not on them but on Valeira. Her face is streaked with tears, her chest rising and falling unevenly. She doesn't look like the proud warrior she was hours ago. She looks hollow, torn between grief and disbelief. Alex's voice is calm, unshaken. What now? Do you want to avenge your father? Or uphold the deal? Valeira's lips part, but no sound comes. Her eyes are red, swollen, wet. Yet beneath the tears, Alex can see it. The light inside her is dimming, retreating into something emptier. She whispers, her voice breaking, her body trembling as though even standing is unbearable. Alex, are you really this cruel? Was everything you did for my clan, for me, just an act? Her words cut, not because of their sharpness but because of their helplessness. She is not only mourning her father, Velkhane, proud and defiant to the end, but also mourning her own illusions. Her first love, the man she thought she knew, is a monster in human skin. Worse still, that monster is the one who ended her father's life. Her tears roll freely, but her gaze, it is becoming hollow, empty. Alex sees her eyes, but he cannot bend here. He cannot show hesitation. His voice turns cold, unyielding. Give me an answer. The wind stirs her hair. The warriors around her wait, breath held, every ear straining for her choice. Valeira swallows, her voice soft but firm enough to echo in the heavy silence. As the new leader of the Ashedge clan, we will uphold my father's wish. She closes her eyes, as though forcing herself to sever what remains of her heart. When she opens them again, the tears still fall, but her words no longer tremble. Our clan will submit to the Erevaris kingdom and become your subordinates. The wall is quiet, save for the sounds of warriors falling to their knees, the clatter of armor and weapons ringing like muted bells. The surrender spreads not just as an act of will but as inevitability. Alex studies her carefully, the faintest shadow passing across his expression. The choice costs her dearly. He can see it in the way her hands tremble, in the hollowness creeping into her gaze. He steps closer, the weight of his presence pressing down on the wall until even the hardened warriors dare not raise their heads. Because you chose the right thing, Alex says, his tone even, carrying no trace of triumph. I will give you a gift. Murmurs ripple among the Ashedge warriors. A gift? From the monster who just erased their leader and their mountains? None understand, and none dare ask aloud. Alex lets his gaze sweep across them before returning to Valeira. Though humans may hold a lower status than monsters within my kingdom, you are still my people. Your lives belong under my banner, and I do not discard what is mine. He lifts a hand, and with a flicker of dark light, something appears in his grip. A staff. Its shaft is wrought from blackened bone, runes crawling across it like living worms of pale silver. At its crown rests a crystal orb, dark and hollow, as though it devours the light around it. A faint, mournful wail seems to hum from within the staff itself, pressing against the minds of those nearby. Even the most battle-hardened warriors instinctively recoil. Valeira grips the wall for support, her lips parting as unease twists in her chest. What are you going to do? The staff hums with a low, unsettling vibration, as though the stone beneath their feet resonates with its presence. Alex runs a finger along the bone-carved shaft, his expression calm, almost detached. This is Nixvile, the Staff of Reversal. To most of you it may look cursed. Perhaps it is. But power is rarely comforting. The warriors nearest to him instinctively step back. One drops his weapon, the clatter loud in the tense silence. Even Valeira's breath hitches. Her instincts scream danger, yet her eyes stay locked on him, unable to turn away. Alex lowers his gaze to the orb at the staff's crown. For an instant, something flickers there. Shadows pulling inward, coalescing into a spiral of pitch-black light. It is not fire, nor frost, nor lightning, but something older, something that feels as though it should not exist. He speaks, his voice steady. You chose surrender. You chose survival, not pride. And for that, I return what was taken. Valeira's lips part, confusion clouding her grief. Return? Alex plants the butt of Nixvile against the stone wall. The orb glows with a pulse that seems to drain warmth from the air. A ripple of darkness spreads out, crawling across the ground like liquid night. The warriors tense, but none move. They are paralyzed by awe and fear. The shadow pools where Velkane's body should be, but there is nothing left. Nuesh, Nubon. Only the echo of his existence. And yet, the orb flares. The shadows twist. A form begins to rise. First mist, then flesh, then armor. Breathless gasps erupt from the Ash-Edge warriors as they see what should be impossible. Velkane's figure, kneeling, whole, alive. His chest rises sharply as he sucks in his first ragged breath. Valeira stumbles forward, covering her mouth with trembling hands. Father? Velkane lifts his head, his eyes wide, disoriented. His voice rasps, broken from the silence of death. Valeira? The staff's glow dims. The shadows retreat back into the orb, leaving Velkane alive, whole, kneeling in stunned silence. Alex withdraws the staff, his face unreadable. He doesn't explain the item, doesn't reveal its limits, doesn't tell them this miracle can only be used once a month. To them, it is something greater, a godlike act. He meets Valeira's stunned, tear-streaked eyes. Do not mistake this for mercy. It is responsibility. Your clan belongs to me now, and I do not waste what is mine. Valeira drops to her knees, sobbing, torn between relief and dread, her heart breaking in ways she cannot name. Behind her, the warriors are too stunned to move, their faith in everything they knew shattered a second time. Alex stands over the staff a moment longer, the blackened runes faintly glowing, then exhales quietly through his nose. Inwardly, he cannot help but reflect. Nixvile, the Staff of Reversal. In this world, it radiates dread, awe, and mystery. But to him, it is little more than an old tool gathering dust in his inventory. Not a Tier 6 artifact, not some legendary Tier 9 treasure. In the game, it had been classified simply as a special artifact. Rare, yes, but not powerful in the way most imagined. This function is absolute yet narrow. One ability, one purpose, to revive the fallen, any being so long as they are not Tier 7 or above. That is all. Its cost? A cooldown of 1 month before it can be used again, and 10 million gold coins. His eyes, cold and steady, shift from Velkane to Valeira. Remember this, he says. I revive what I choose. I destroy what I choose. The air is still trembling from the echo of his words. Valira's lips quiver, but she cannot speak. Her tears blur the sight of him, but her heart memorizes the weight of his presence as he turns away. Alex's black cloak stirs as he rises slowly into the air, hovering just above the wall. The Ash-Edge warriors, still kneeling, dare not raise their eyes. Even Velcane, reborn and breathing heavily, lowers his head in silence. Alex drifts backward, his figure dark against the burning horizon, until he reaches the edge where his forces wait. Mazel steps forward, kneeling deeply as the shadow of his master falls over him. "Let's go back," Alex says evenly, his voice carrying not just to Mazel but across the silent battlefield. "As you command, Your Majesty," Mazel replies, his tone steady though the embers of awe still burn in his chest. Without another glance at the wall, Alex turns, his silhouette vanishing into the looming shadow of the massive floating vessel that hangs like a fortress in the sky. The boat's dark hull glimmers faintly with warding runes, swallowing him into its hold. Her hand tightens at her chest, as though steadying the storm inside. The battlefield's distant roar fades in her ears, replaced only by the echo of his shadow, unshakable, untouchable. For a moment, her lips curve in a bitter smile. "What kind of man are you, to break me and lift me up in the same breath?" The next day, across the Empire's subordinate forces, palaces, clan halls, and fortresses, the same message spreads like wildfire, carried by trembling spies, written in hurried script, whispered in torchlit rooms. The Ash-Edge clan has submitted, their leader slain, their heiress bent the knee, and before all their eyes, Velcane was brought back from death itself by the King of Monsters. In the great stone hall of the Valor Kingdom, the council gathers. The king slams the report down, his voice shaking with disbelief. "This is madness. One attack destroyed the mountains? A staff that revives the dead? Do you expect me to believe this?" His minister, pale and sweating, bows his head. "Your Majesty, the words are absurd. But the spies swear it is true. They describe the same thing, down to the very breath." "Then they are liars," the king roars. "Or worse, already enthralled by this monster king." In another land, deep in the Jadefang clan's mountain hold, the clan head sits in silence as his elders argue around him. One elder slams the table, snarling, "The Ash-Edge were stronger than us. If they bent, what chance do we have?" Another spits back, "Cowards! They should have fought to the last drop of blood." A third, voice trembling, whispers the part that silences them all. "He revived Velcane, dead one moment, alive the next. Tell me, elders, if such power is true, what is left for us to resist with?" The chamber falls silent. The head of the Jadefang narrows his eyes at the lone candle flickering before him, its flame bending in the stillness. His voice cuts low, edged with suspicion. "And where is the Empire?" he mutters. "Why are they still so quiet?"